motorsport, but not as you know it. Test yourself and your everyday road car. Safe, affordable, but most of all, fun. And all you need is your daily driver. Experience the thrill of a sprint day, race against the clock at a hill climb, or test your reflexes with an auto test. It takes just 3 simple steps to get started. Get on the start line. Search Motorsport Australia Daily Driver today.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hello and welcome to the grand finale of the Logitech Pro Invitational Series for 2023. It's been a long, arduous talk all the way from the top end of the season. Round number 1, we've now arrived at the tail end of the season. Round number 10. Tonight we'll be crowning our Logitech G Pro Invitational Series champion for 2023, but also, more importantly, who automatically qualifies their way back into season 2024. 20 drivers, 20 slots will be open for that one, who will take the title and who will hang around to contest it for 2024. My name's Scott Rankin, alongside of Dan Yeaman in the booth tonight. Dan Yeaman, we head to the picturesque Road Atlanta. This place is known for the 10-hour endurance event as part of the IMSA season. It hosts the Petit Le Mans event each and every year, and it's honestly one of my faves on the sim because it's tough, it's technical, it's got the elements of an American Bathurst in a lot of different ways, Dan.
It certainly does. Thank you for the introduction there, and hello to everyone watching with us here tonight. My first time, obviously, here in the comms booth for the Pro Invitational, across the 2 years that this series has now existed, and getting ready for its 3rd year of running come next year, as you said there. And I mean, yeah, it's a great circuit here, Road Atlanta, despite the fact we're looking at just over 4 kilometers in circuit length, incredibly fast lap times in many kinds of vehicle, and these cars no exception, seeing here our fastest times in practice, less than 1 minute and 20 seconds around this venue. And yeah, opening sector, fantastic elevation change, as we see here with Josh Anderson on board right now, up into turn 3, and then working your way back down through these S's, the switching back left and right, getting ready for then the flick back up through turn 5, and then plenty of straightaway for sectors 2 and 3 to be where you can get your passing done if you can get good runs off the corners and take advantage of the slipstream.
Well, last round out, it was a strategy game, and one group had it, the other did not. So it was the Synergy Sim Racing guys missed a trick in terms of the pit stop strategies from Road America, and both tracks in the last 2 rounds, Road. Well, America last time out, Road Atlanta this time out. So it's going to be the championship lead and the crucial control heading into the final round. Madison Down leads the way on a net 2,000 points total. It's going to be 77 points back from there to James Scott and Brady Myers, a very, very distant 3rd in the final round. And Dan, that's strategy. That's really going to play some important factors tonight. Passing does come at a premium when you come to Road Atlanta. The big opportunity is obviously the final chicane. So track position, very, very important. Strategy, got to have your head switched on around here. 68 laps is the journey, and for these guys, what are the numbers? What are we looking at in terms of championship implications?
Well, yeah, as you said, Brady Myers a fair way back. The actual number that Brady's coming into tonight's standing on 1864 puts him at a 136-point deficit to Madison at the top of the table. As you said, yeah, it's a 67-point gap between Madison and James for P1 and P2. And so, yeah, we're looking at what this, in theory, with a 200-point maximum for our race winner at the conclusion of events this evening, it theoretically, by that standard, will be Madison Downs championship to lose. And given the way he's been able to keep his keep the strategy on point, get the results in, strong results basically all season long, certainly in the hot seat. We'll have to see how things go. Currently sitting P3 with times nice and tight in qualifying, or practice I should say, might be a good sign for qualifying, but also mean that, that track position is going to be extremely important if the times are this close when it comes to peak potential. And we'll be curious to see, therefore, how that converts into race stint performance as well, of course.
We're only just a couple of moments away, by the way, ladies and gents, from transitioning across into qualifying tonight. And with lap times down the 1:17 range last time out, Road America, they're up and above the 2-minute range. It means we'll probably get an extra run, maybe an extra second run. So potentially 5 opportunities for these drivers to go hard and get that qualifying lap in. Also means with our field size as well, that track space and that free opportunity to get your lap in does come as a premium. A little bit of a tow will come into an effect, but most importantly, let's have a look at the important aspects of what 2024 is going to be looking like. I think we've actually got the 2024 calendar to start off with, and that's just popped up on your screen at this point in time. To start us off, we'll be starting from Sebring. On March 13th will be a sprint round, Phillip Island, Red Bull Ring, Jerez, Watkins Glen, Road America and Monza. The first 7 rounds all sprint, running from March 13th through to July 24th. Then we get into the 3-race, the expanded endurance calendar. That's going to take us to Interlagos, which is the only of the international endurance rounds. From there, it's the mainstays on the calendar and the 2 very, very important ones. The ones that are near and dear to our heart. It's the Sandown and Bathurst to round out the Enduro Cup. The expansion into a 3-round format is going to be really, really important as well. And then the final 2 rounds, 1 TBA in terms of the circuits, and we'll also have Spa to return to the calendar as well. So another long, long lap. But more importantly than that, I think, is where you're going to be qualifying in, Dan, because if you're in the back 20 drivers of the finishing results in terms of overall standings, this is the pathway you've got to come through.
Yep, a lot like what we see in, say, NASCAR, who established a format similar to this. As you said, our bottom 20 drivers in the standings for this year will have to go through the qualifying series once again. We do have pre-qualifying for drivers who want to try and get into the Pro Invitational for 2024, a combination of their times at Winton and Phillip Island to kick things off there. And then 4 races will actually get started in terms of the racing action for 2024 at Road Atlanta after finishing here tonight on the 31st January. Then a week later, head to France, and the Circuit of Neves Magny-Cours will play host to the second round of the qualifying series on the 7th of February. Hockenheim Ring Baden-Württemberg for round 3 on the 14th of February, and then a 1-week gap before we go to round 4 on the 28th of February over in Japan at the Fuji Motor Speedway. So now drivers bottom 20 here in the Pro Invitational this year, and those looking to make their way in for 2024 will be combining for that 4-round clash to get the racing underway next year before the full calendar gets going in March.
And I think one of the important points to point out, and I think this is coincidental, is that round number 3 of that qualifying series is on Valentine's Day. By that point, either you're in love with the series and the series loves you, and you might be on for tracking into the series, or you're a little bit unloved, and you'll be enjoying Valentine's Day solo, putting extra laps into the sim to try and make your way in through the qualifying process. Qualifying, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is in order, and apologies for hijacking your broadcast this season. Just saw some talk out the chat of where the regional commentators. Unfortunately, both Sandman and Lockie Mansell both unavailable this evening, so that's why you've been paired with myself, Scott Rankin and Dan Yeaman on your comms for the evening. And the usual qualifying who wants a tow from who games are out and in force as usual.
No surprise, you said it as part of sort of talking about the track, and yeah, the fact that sectors 2 and 3 here at Road Atlanta are dominated by a good straight from turn 5 up to turn 6, but of course this back straightaway here from turn 7 all the way down to turn 10A, you can pick up valuable tenths with a good run off of 7, and then the slipstream all the way down here. We're seeing drivers topping out around 275, nearly 280 kilometers an hour. So you see who's got the cars trimmed out in qualifying spec, perhaps, to maximize the straight line speed. But up the front of the train, it looks like it's going to be so Jordan Ross potentially leading them all across the lane. Not quite. There's a few cars ahead of J. Ross, to be precise. In fact, the first one is going to be Robbie Gibbs in the number 2 ERT machine. But eyes here on Ethan Grigg Galt for a second spot as he gets his qualifying lap underway for this first run of the field.
Yeah, probably important to focus in on him. One of the successful drivers of the E-Series of late note, managed to pick up his 2nd championship in a row. The Hyundai Excel National Championships were held over in Perth this year. I believe it was only last weekend, and he's managed to pick up another championship from the transfer to Real World. We heard about him a couple of years ago, as he did get the opportunity to transition into a Real World race car gig. One of the only drivers to go from sim to Real World racing duties. Normally it's the other way around. You've got all the talent from the Real World variant, and then you can directly apply that to the sim. No, Ethan Green-Gault's managed to wrap up another Hyundai Excel. It's not easy, particularly being all the way over in Perth. I think he said 8,000 kilometre round trip to travel it all the way over there to go back to back and perform on the Sunday over there, and job done for him.
Yeah, because I can tell you that shot there looks to be like it's from Winton. So, yeah. And I've seen definitely other shots from Ethan racing at Winton in years past, as our first qualifying times coming in as drivers cross the line. And there we go, into the 117s once again after practice times. And it's the fastest so far for Green-Gault, just over a 10th clear of Adam Briggs there in second, which will though be eclipsed by James Scott, who actually goes faster than the best time we saw in practice there. 17.629 going to be at the top of the charts for now. Madison down, close behind though, half a tenth, not even in it there after the first run.
Yeah, and that's just after the first installment as well. So Madison down in behind good buddy and championship rival in Brady Myers there as well. So really important for those two to show a clean pair of heels. And we talked about track position. That means a lot more than it normally does here. It's nearly a street circuit in the way. Obviously the walls are a little bit further away, but it's bumping and grinding all over. Always when I come here when I'm doing laps, I get a little bit of the vibes of Gold Coast up through 3, 4 S's 5. I love bouncing over the curbs at 5. There'll be a few cars that you'll see out of shape here tonight as well. As the race back to the pit lane begins for qualifying run number 1, like you said, it was James Scott that led the way from Madison down. Josh Anderson, Jake Burton, Brady Myers, your top 5. Richard Hampstead, Green-Gault with that early flying lap manages to hang on to the top 10. In 7th, Rick Kuznetsov, Andrew Gilliam and Dylan Rudd round out your top 10. Who'll be looking for a little bit deeper in the pack? I know, talking to Brenton Hobson a little bit earlier in the week, and he said, you know, it's critical that I qualify back. It's important for me to get back into the top 20. He's not had great starts in the last couple of weeks, and unfortunately for him, he's right on that bubble. He's right on that cusp, and things have got to change. He's got to have a good finish here tonight. There'll be nerves sitting in that car in the seat of the 88.
Yeah, mathematically, we've got 10 drivers who could potentially move up and down over that P20 marker. Speaking of P20 at the moment specifically, it's Robbie Gibbs who holds that spot in the number 2 Evolution Racing Team car, who there he is on screen now. He's already heading out, having chosen to abort his first attempt in qualifying, maybe picked up an off-track there as well. Jordan Ross in the 143 machine. I'm going to find him on the stands. I believe he is safer in that sense, but I'll have to get back on that one there. Despite my attempts to prepare, when I go and look at the championship, can't go and find his name, which is going to do me a solid if that's going to be the case. But we'll see here how J. Ross can go in qualifying. So far, though, he's got no time on the board and validated his first lap, so we'll need to get one on sooner rather than later, because we are already over 1/3 into the qualifying session here, Scott.
Yeah, that's it, and that means that we're going to be on to that second lap for a number of drivers. So for Robbie Gibbs, this second lap right here is going to be quite critical, and that was the driver he just saw shooting through past, I believe that was Jordan Ross, like you said, Bradley Ratsu. And I think it's actually going to be Dylan O'Shea that's going to lead the second pack back to the line on this next circuit by. So for O'Shea, he'll probably be looking to slot in back and behind someone. Yeah, the games have started. Have a look. So that's the lap from Robbie Gibbs, who will put a lap on the board and jumps to 13th. But if we can jump back and have a look in behind Dylan O'Shea, check this out. This is intense. This is backing up. You get a little bit of Formula 1 at Monza vibes when you have a look at this, and somebody's about to pull the trigger. Who's it going to be? Who's going to hang on? Who's going to go? And it's going to be mayhem when they get down here to the chicane. They've only got to run down the hill from here. A little bit of the right-hand kick. You'd be forgiven for thinking it might be the race already, Dan.
As you can see there via the on-screen shot, that is everyone in the field tonight except for 4 cars that are now joining the back of the train that were all packed up in this snake that's now heading down and around. And it was Jake Burton who pulled the trigger first in the number 8 for Trans-Tasman Racing, who's now leading this group across and to start their second qualifying runs. You see, yeah, decided O'Shea decided he's going to wait and see if someone would take the option, and indeed, Burton's decided he'll go first. He's followed by teammate Richard Hampstead and Brody Myers. Madison down. Josh Anderson has this. Funnily enough, Trans-Tasman Racing have decided to all go together. 6 of their drivers lined up at the head of this second wave of the queue. The first non-Trans-Tasman car is Ethan Griggold, and I believe he's 7th in the queue, 7th in qualifying, and with number 7 on the car as well. Looks like he's deciding 7s all round might be where he might keep things at for now.
Yeah, well, it's going to be standing room only, and I think there's going to be a few guys dipping out of the queue as off-tracks maybe picked up, and it's over that first chicane. It's that turn 3 at the crest of the hill. So easy to pick up an off-track on the inside. You've got to settle the car. You've got to turn the car. You've got to point the car. You've got to manage that throttle pedal. There's a reason why this track is a favourite, and there's another driver dipping out of the queue, and I think that might have been Hampstead who was sliding backwards. Indeed, it was Hampstead who's already aborted his lap. So for Jake Burton, he's now going to try and give it so long. Big slide on the way out the other side of the 10A, 10B chicane. And a debate that we always have when we head to American circuits with tricky names like Bus Stop, Inner Loop. They're both effectively the same corners when you head to Watkins Glen. 10A, 10B. Shouldn't it be 10 and 11, you would say? Given that the way the Americans talk about their NASCAR corners, not always the case.
I've decided, based on my experiences in the sim commentating at American tracks, I'm just going to give up on expecting common sense rhyme or reason from American cornering conventions. So the fact that, for example, here at Road Atlanta, there isn't a corner number from turn 4, which is the left-hander at the top of the hill as you make your way down the S's, until you get to here where we're watching Tom Freer. That's turn 5 is going through right now. So apparently that back and forth through the S's, they don't count as corner numbers because the numbers are tied to marshal's posts, if you didn't know. Are seeing now on these next couple of runs here, in laps or flying laps, a couple of mistakes. Indeed, the first one here live on pitches is Michael Angus in the 205. I also caught on my own end watching back the 777 of Mike Taliancic on his previous attempt. Had a bit of a slip and spin through turns 6 and 7. But here's what happened to Angus. Sebastian flocked right behind. That might have been a touch from that angle there. I might go have a quick look and confirm that one from my own angles as well, as we continue to watch the action here on track.
And for those of you who'll be sitting there going, hang on, is he roughed him up on a fast lap? No, this is the cool down lap on the way back too. So let's have a little bit of a talk and communicate about the changing times that come through. So Down did improve on that second lap. He's gone to a 5:08, and that means that he has gone to the top of the timing sheets. James Scott did not improve, indeed managed to pick himself up and off track at some point. The other driver that did improve was Ethan Griggold. So Griggold's going to jump back up to second place on the timing tower. Myers to 4. So your top 3 in the championship are 1, 3, and 4, and they are in championship order as well. So for Madison Down, wanted to get up and on the front row, needed to start have a good qualifying performance, nothing out of sequence, and start a long way forward. He's managed to do that. A driver that's probably found a little bit of extra performance is probably have to talk about Richard Hampstead, has managed to push his way inside the top 10, and for Richard Hampstead, it's important to note that the chaotic round that was Bathurst, with him getting stuck unfortunately on top of a wall and being forced to tow and effectively ending his day very, very early on. 7th place in qualifying when he's only 1/1000th of a second off of 6th place in qualifying. He'll be sitting there at the back end of that season going, yeah, that's exactly what I needed tonight. A good start in qualifying, nice grid spot, and a nice way to move himself up the field, and keep that qualification attempt for next season alive.
Yeah, indeed, as the field now pretty much all together once again. The exceptions are Brad Rattu in the 938 and the 444 of Sebastian Varndell, who are out on their lonesome at the moment. With the time ticking down here in the session, I'd only confidently say we're going to get one more run from our drivers here, because with the fact they can't tow at any point on the circuit, they have to bring it back to the pits before they can reset. As we're being told, Jordan Rossio in the 143 is actually on a lap out of sequence with the field here. So let's stay with him here, as he's going to keep the hammer down whilst everyone else is trying to get ready for this lap. And this is something he's going to have to be mindful of. He's probably, actually no, he's not flashing the headlights. He's just trusting everyone around him here to be aware that he's coming at pace while they're getting ready to get this lap going. And it starts here at 10A, 10B, of course, Scott, with getting you set up out of this chicane to get the run over the hill down to 11 and 12 to start your flying lap.
Yeah, well, he's caught them all about the right time. For the guys that were behind him, it was actually James Scott that he comes across. He's that car just ahead of him as we see the 088 flash by just in front of the 143 of Jordan Ross. And running wide at turn 1 is going to be the 707 of Tom Freer, who's going to have to find a safe way up and through this section, and indeed has managed to stay off the track. 77 as well, looking for a little bit of pace. Again, Madison down. This time he'll be tying around Brady Myers, and he's going to be the guy punching the hole in the air. It is a track a little bit reliant on that front downforce, that front splitter, so there is some lap time and certainly leading the queue, albeit there's not enough time for the tyre wear and the tyre heat to overcome that factor in qualifying. That's the big picture. So you want that toe as they come down to the back straight one more time. And there is going to be enough time in the books, I think, for this qualifying attempt. They're going to be on the fringe. You know what, Dan? They might actually get the extra lap in.
They might, but the tyres won't have it in them. That's the thing. These drivers know how to perfect the car in terms of setup and optimization, that they're only going to get one lap of potential. And his tyres that you see here, there we go, Myers aborts to reset and go one more run with basically no time to spare on a final outlap. When the time hits 0, of course, they'll be allowed to complete the lap they're on. James Scott will do the same as he follows away. It's Andrew Gilliam in the Ultra C Sports 201 Mustang to the lane. So these drivers here deciding that they're going to try and take their chances at one final lap, whereas a couple of cars stayed out to complete the laps they were on, and they've ended their runs there. Mike Taliancic in the Ultras Australia 777 comes across the line, but unfortunately for him there, or pardon me, gets his first valid time on the board, but so far only good for P26, and that will probably be it for him, given with 1 minute and 20 left on the clock. He's not got time to get around to get another lap going, because yeah, the tyres will be done now.
Yeah, so there's an important note for those few drivers that did abort and did come back down the lane. We should probably be keeping half an eye on a few of them. Andrew Gilliam's going to practice to start out of the pit lane, so that's not necessarily about another qualifying attempt. Jordan Ross is going to have another crack from out in front of him. I think potentially Wayne Burke hasn't set a lap time at the moment, so there'll be a ton of drivers in the session yet to set a lap time. And Damien Johnson, I believe, is another one of those, as is Dave Worrell, but I'm not seeing Dave Worrell back out in the session at the moment, so it'll just be Damien Johnson's the only driver. Damien Johnson, Luke Rosella hasn't set a lap, Wayne Burke not set a lap, and he's done as well. Massive damage to the front left corner of that car as he got out of everyone's way. So Burke will not set a time. Rosella is going to be right down at the tail end of the field, has not set a lap time within qualifying. And unfortunately for him, he's going to be starting at the rear and will be charging his way through, albeit for Luke Rosella, fairly confident. Yeah, he's qualified his way into next season. Pretty much going to take a points penalty to escalate him to the point of the relegation zone. So he's nice and safe, attacking from the back end of the field. Sometimes that's a good way. Some drivers like to shake things up. They go, yep, there's not anything on the line for me. Let's try something different. Let's go at things from a different direction. And sometimes that works. And another one of those drivers actually we'll probably talk about during the piece is Michael Taliancic. Caught up with him midweek as well. And he said, this result right here is about consistency. Can I maintain the consistency at the required lap speed to remain in contention? Or perhaps is this the end of the road for me, and I'm happy to step aside and say, yep, I've had my fair crack, I'm going to step back, take my sim racing a little bit easier. And sometimes for some people, Dan, that's the right approach. You know, you've given it all you can, you've shown your colours, you've shown what you can absolutely do, and it just hasn't worked. Let's have a big old crack, and the last round of the season, see what's possible. Do we want bother qualifying for next season? Well, that'll be the question on tally splits at the end of tonight.
Maybe indeed is, yeah, the checkered flag meanwhile has flown, but it looks like just about everyone on track still not on a lap here. So Luke Mitchinson's already done nearly 4 laps on his tyres. Robbie Gibbs might be looking to commit here and get one more on board. Indeed, he will put the number 2 Evolution Racing Team Mustang through to the line. A couple of personal bests apparently on timing, and he will find almost 2.5 hundredths there. So small gains, but valuable. Gets him a couple of spots there, and it's going to be our last couple of cars coming to the pit lane. Dylan O'Shea demonstrating perhaps how not to take that pit entry there with plenty of grass used on his way in, but I guess get it out of the system now before the race starts, given the challenge of the pit entry. And well, that will do us for qualifying here, and Robbie Gibbs will be our last car who will just circulate around back to the pits to wrap things up here.
Yeah, so qualifying for the final round of the season is run and done. No final valid attempts in the books, and indeed that's going to be the end of qualifying as it stands. It'll be Madison Down from the Trans-Tasman group who will manage to put it on pole position here for the final time this season, and it'll be Ethan Greek-Gold that's actually off alongside of him. James Scott and Brady Myers going to round out your top four. For fifth on back, it's going to be Josh Anderson and Jake Burton, who had phenomenal qualifying performances, and the Trans-Tasman crew continue to show their stripes at the tail end of season 2023. It's going to be Richard Hampstead off alongside of Tom Freer on the next row of the grid, before it'll be Brenton Hobson and Rick Kuznetsov to round out your top 10. I tell you what, there was absolutely nothing between them. Look at that, 200ths of a second between Greek-Gold and James Scott for second place on the board, and it was like that just the entire way through. And for Robbie Gibbs, all the way down in 18th spot, identical lap time to Marcelo Rivera, will nick the spot in the dying stages. He was only 4 1,000ths of a second off of besting Kurt Stenberg as well. There's nothing in these times, and that's the perfect part here, Dan, about these shorter lap times is how close the grids are together.
Yeah, 100%. The fact that, a 17.5 through to an 18.9 is our range on qualifying times tonight, with a couple of drivers. Particularly notable, Luke Rosella had a rear of grid penalty. That's why he didn't set a time in the 55 tonight. But with that all said and done, I'll hand back to you. We'll start our grid walk with the driver on pole, as well as our championship leader going into tonight, Madison Down. We'll chat with you here, Scott.
Mads, it's going to be a nice, good way to finish the season. Qualified on pole. Got to finish inside of that top 15. If you do so, it's good enough for the championship win. What's on the mind tonight?
Oh, to be honest, just been focusing on having a fast enough race car all week. We look to have a good car for that quali session, so obviously a lot of nerves and a lot of pressure ahead of a final round of a championship like this, especially being in the position I'm in. But overall, the focus is just eyes forward and try and win the race, really.
The final question before we'll sort of shuffle on with things as well, do you change the way that you drive in these championship finales, or you just back your instincts and say, I've got to do what I've done all season long?
Yeah, do what I've done all season. All season we've had good results, we've had mega consistency, so it's more of the same, really. Obviously, a bit lower risk in terms of the door-to-door racing, I guess, and just try to make high percentage moves and don't do anything stupid. But yeah, essentially it's drive the car fast and try and win the race.
All right, mate. Best of luck here tonight. You're in with a gun shout, and we'll see you on the other side.
Thanks, guys. Chat to you after.
Moving down the field, Dan, we're going to be chatting to James Scott, who is second place in the championship, mate, and he's in with the next best shout of having a crack at nicking it off of Madison Down.
Indeed. Well, James, another strong qualifying performance from you here tonight. It seems 10th off of Madison Down when it came to the one-lap pace. Was there anywhere on your lap tonight you felt like maybe there was time you could have found?
Yeah, mate, quite a lot, to be honest. Not happy with my lap at all. So there was probably another good 2 to 3 tenths left on the table. So I don't know. Car feels pretty good, so we'll see what we can do in the race. But I don't know. Draft's pretty strong around here, so it's just going to be a DRS train for most of the race, I would think.
I think it's a fair point to make there, and championship potentially up for grabs if you can keep a strong result. It may require a bit of misfortune for Madison ahead of you to turn things around there, but is that playing on your mind at all, or are you just here looking for a race result to round the season out strongly tonight?
No, I'm just here for a race result, really. It's a bit of a grit and go this week. I haven't been able to do much practice, so see what we can do, but championships well and truly gone now, so we'll see what we can do.
Well, thanks for that, James. Hopefully have a chance to chat to you after the race if things go well for you, and all the best out there tonight.
Thank you.
Well, there we go. One driver, Scott, who I think, unfortunately, expecting things to be a bit so-so on that championship front, but I guess, we'll be requiring a bit of a moment from Madison Down, which he's definitely in the right place to start things off. But there is one more driver in with a mathematical chance, and that will be the number 22, Brady Myers. And I'll hand back to you to have a chat with Brady here on the grid.
Brady, there's been some amazing stoushes throughout the season. These guys have shown, it's just been a dogfight right the way through. Everyone who's led the championship has fallen by the wayside. It's your teammate who's leading the championship tonight. Are you going to put the mockers on him a little bit?
I've been putting the mockers on him all week just to rev him up. But, we'll see. still in with a shot, but I just really have to put my best foot forward and see what tonight brings.
For you, does that mean any Hail Marys? You're going to get a little bit more aggressive with the strategy. We just got to try. We can't lose anything, right, from here. We can only try and go forward. So does that mean you are going to just throw everything and see what sticks? Or do you get a little bit more aggressive? Do you have a crack? You just go, third place is good enough. I'm really satisfied with that.
I think it opens the door for me to be definitely more aggressive, but at the same time, got to keep an eye on Ethan behind. Don't want to do anything too silly and too wayward, but yeah, definitely leaves the door open for me to play some games.
Other than that, on your way back in there to Mads, on the way past him, make sure you tell him the guy that's led the championship hasn't won it, mate. We want to see us fair stoush. We'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, I'll make sure I do.
Good to chat to you as usual, Brady. Have a great night tonight, mate, and we'll see that 22 post race, I'm sure.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.
And then finally, Dan, this week, the sim racing community within Australia bid farewell to one of its biggest and most important supporters. He's been a long-time fan. He's been a long-time supporter of just about anything to do with supercars, but he's really been a part of the Fishy Motorsports family. And tonight we will be racing for Eddie for a number of the cars that are out there. Michael Angus is going to be joining us here to chat a little bit about his friend. And Michael, for Eddie Klewitz, this is this final round of the championship. This is all about going racing for Eddie, and it's all about that team culture that's on display at Fishy.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Not just Fishy, but to be honest, a lot of the teams across the supercar community have all sort of known Eddie or known of someone that knows Eddie, and it's been quite humbling to see everyone sort of put the racing teams aside for a little bit and yeah, get around a really good bloke that's genuine passion in life was sim racing. So, if you're a supercar driver in Australia and you happen to stream or be in a team that does stream, there's a very, very good chance that him and his son would have tuned in at some point to watch. And absolutely, we're going racing for Eddie now and thinking of him.
Mate, it was a battle with stage 4 cancer, unfortunately, with Eddie that took him from us. But what's the mood around Fishy like at the moment? What's the communication been like with all those? I've heard so many sharing of moments of guys that are around, not just within the Fishy community, but you name it, right across Australian sim racing. It's just been a big coming together. Is that what Eddie was really like?
Yeah, I think that's probably the message that's come through loud and clear from everyone that's sort of shot through a message or shared something about him. He was a very happy dude, like he would bend over backwards to help you out. He had a PC company and has built a lot of the PC rigs for many of the drivers on the grid here tonight, and particularly in Team Fishy, he's helped out at all sorts of times. I know there's stories of, the day before a race, something going wrong in the PC and Eddie driving way too far to come and fix it for you at last minute to make sure that you didn't miss the race. And the further and further we're sort of getting into it, the more and more of those stories we're hearing. So unfortunately, one of the really good guys, it sucks that one of the good guys gets taken out by something so evil. And I think the one really shining light, that, if you can call it that, that's come from it, young EJ's son. We've had him in the Discord the last few days just to keep him preoccupied and busy. Wrapped our arms around him, and we've basically told him, if there's a fish in the pond, which is what we call our chat, jump in and sit with us, and whether or not we're going to pretend how to learn to play Fortnite or whatever we need to do to keep him busy, that's what we'll all do. But no, it's been really humbling to see a lot of the teams reach out. There was a few last night before the race that even asked to run the race with Eddie banner on their car, which is awesome to see.
So from everyone, not only within the Logitech Pro Invitational Series, but right across the sim racing fraternity as a whole, we say a big shout out to Eddie Klewitz. We say thank you to you for all that you've done for us as a community, for all the kind words, for all the moments that you've shared with us, and for keeping everyone together. We want to say a big thank you for making this, a culture, a shared environment, and we want to say a big thank you for participating with us. And we hope that if you see EJ around, or if you've heard of EJ, you pass on your thoughts to him and his family as well. So Michael, I want to say thank you to you, your team, and everyone for sharing these moments with us. It's been big, men, and big heartfelt thank you, I think, from the entire sim racing community.
Yeah, no, thanks, mate. And as Eddie would have said, let's go racing.
All right, mate. We'll see you on the other side of 68 laps. Enjoy every moment of tonight's final round of the Logitech Pro Invitational Series.
Thanks, boys.
Well, Dan, it's a heartbreaking way to start the final race, but it also means that it's going to mean something for a lot more drivers, and that's what it's about. You know, we're moments away now from getting started. Is there anyone you've got your eye on to surge forward from the starting grid?
Well, of course, our top three in the championship sitting in first, third and fourth. They'll be the first drivers to keep an eye on. To be honest, there's a lot of names here that I've seen over the past 2 or 3 years. Of course, keep coming to the top of the order when it matters, such as tonight. And as they're about to get the hammer down, as the green flag will fly here at Road Atlanta, it's time to see who will prevail for one final time in the Logitech Pro Invitational for 2023. Madison Down will lead them to turn one, but James Scott already looking inside of him. He'll actually get the rear right, and that'll be 3 wide through the corner as Grid Gold swings around the outside to try and challenge Scott up the hill towards turn 2 and 3.
Well, it's a famous NASCAR moment. It's a famous moment now. The Logitech Pro Invitational Series is going to be contact between Greg Gott and James Scott. It's the pass in the grass. He got to the inside at turn number 1, but it's going to be Madison Down that leads us away. Josh Anderson snagged P2. Brady Myers is back to third. And for James Scott, tumbling through the order. It's gone chaos at turn 1. It's gone chaos at turn 2. They didn't need to wait for one time by the flag stand. And for Sebastian Varndell, he's also often in the weeds. It's just about over. It's the final round of the Logitech Pro Invitational Series. There's a lot on the line, and I think it just showed.
My word, we saw through it. The fact Madison Down comes back out the other side of us in the lead. I didn't quite think that was going to be the case after the fact that he almost got run off at turn 1, lap 1. But then guess maybe it came back to him quite literally 2 corners later, and he's able to find the gap to get on through there. So you just saw that replay in the picture-in-picture moment there in the bottom right-hand of the screen. It's been absolute chaos up and down the field as well. We're still 2, nearly 3 wide further on down the pack here as we look at Andrew Gilliam. P8 at the moment in the 201 machine for Altus Esports, trying to fend off Brad Ratu there in behind in the 938, and they finally get a semblance of single file here, it seems, as we get to the end of lap number 1. We're down in front from Madison and Myers. Burton and Hampson make it. TTR locking out the top 5 at the end of the opening lap.
And you saw from Madison Down, I think the critical factor was he went, yeah, I've got to finish outside the top 10 to lose this thing. You guys have at it. I'm not worried about it. And it was really the racecraft, the heads-up driving from Down that got him out the other side. Greg Gold it was that made contact with James Scott. And there'll be a little bit of debate over that one. It was fighting, it was squabbling over it. At turn 2 on lap number 1. He got the nose down the inside there, a little bit of contact with Down at turn number 1, and then he pinches Greg Gold. 3 becomes 2 at the lead of the race. You don't often go through turn 1 3 wide, and that nearly looks like squabbling over the same bit of real estate.
It absolutely was fighting over the same real estate, starting with, of course, Scott trying to find a little bit of gap at turn 1 as we'll look at it again on board Madison. And you see here, Grigold's up against the white line pretty much, although you can see does leave a bit of a margin as the road starts heading back towards the left. Contact gets the right rear corner of the 088, and quite impressive, mind you, at the same time of all this. James Scott to only make minor secondary contact there with Grid Gold. Has to take the alternate path through the S's there and lose a bit of time in the process. And I think that slowdown more than anything is what hurt him, as he's now sitting still in 7th place. As there is already the end of lap 2, of course. As laps ticking by as drivers. There you go at the final corner. Also going to be taking some liberties with the limits there as they try and keep the pace up across the start-finish line.
Yeah, so James Scott drifts all the way back to 7th place in the running order of things, and something we'll keep half an eye on is who are the drivers in and around your top 20. It's going to be effectively from, where were we saying, Thomas Freeman in 16th place all the way through to 24th, which is Sean McNamara. So it's Freeman, Warboys, Burke, Brenton Hobson, Robert Gibbs. Robert Gibbs is your 20th place driver in the standings. Kurt Stenberg, Marcelo Rivera, Bradley Ratchew, and Sean McNamara are the drivers just on the outside of 20th place in points, looking in. So those are the drivers to keep half an eye on if you want to automatic qualify back into this series for 2024. But there's a championship on at the front end of town. Madison Down will lead away in terms of things, and then the critical factor is, will James Scott get a run on Rick Kuznetsov? He has, to the inside. Kuznetsov breaks a touch early, just gives that one to him and says, yep, it'll be time for racing a little bit deeper on into the piece. And for James Scott, next target is going to be Richard Hampstead, and for Andrew Gilliam, he's defending quite stoutly off against Brenton Hobson in behind. He's got Dylan Rudd crawling all over his rear bumper. So Logitech Pro Invitational, 4 laps. We've started the 4th circuit this time by 3 in the book, and already it's getting feisty up and down the field.
No matter where the racing happens to be, you bring together the top drivers in these cars for a race, and a race with the stakes such as this. Yeah, the margins are tiny. Every little advantage will be taken. Every little mistake will be penalised. And it does mean that the elbows have to come out sometimes if you want to finish off a move. We hope to see when the elbows come out, of course, that there's a certain limit to how much of the elbow pushing and shoving we get. But then again, we are in somewhat touring cars. You can expect drivers to try and lean on each other to maximum effect here as we watch Brenton Hobson here. As I said, one of our drivers currently inside the top 20, P19 for him as it stood coming into tonight, and with a result in the top 10, I think that would be plenty given the other drivers that are around him, and crucially some of the drivers behind on points. They're behind him on the track as well, but still, it's very early days to be talking the end of season result, of course, as Dylan Rudd continuing to keep him on a very short leash there.
Yeah, I think it's that battle a little bit deeper in the pack. In the meantime, up front, we heard James Scott talk about a pre-race. Might be a little bit of a, air quote, DRS train to steal the Formula One term. But for that lead pack, it's very much what it is all of a sudden Scott starts to go a little bit more on the offensive again. Hampstead will be the next driver on the road. We'll see if he's going to be able to get his way on and by him. Tom Friesen, the driver, we're sort of keeping half an eye on. Let's battle a little bit further back and have a look at the exit that James Scott's got, and look at the opposite lock. He's had that in all the way over the curbs. That was a right rear tyre being lit up, if you don't mind. And that is going to cost him when it comes to the tail end of this stint. In terms of fuel, Dan, we're looking at that 34-35 lap range. This is going to be the replays that come down and over the curbs at turn 5, the left-hander, all the way out to the exit. As he jumps off the curb right there. No, it doesn't. It looks a lot more sedentary from the outside of the car than it did in the cockpit. There was a lot of right-hand lock-in, a lot of correction going on for James Scott from the onboard shot.
Now, for me as well, it was the fact that Hans was a little wide of the apex on that occasion through turn 5 as well. Put him up on the curbs a bit more, which probably didn't make the exit as ideal. As a little bit further back in the field, Kurt Stenberg trying to get the spot off Sean McNamara for 19th. And he will get it there initially through 10A, but a bit deep through 10B. Going to open up the inside here through the last couple of turns. He will pinch the 951 down to the apex, and he just is able to keep that position and force McNamara to get out of that one there and reset, and almost puts Dylan O'Shea, McNamara's teammate, into the 951's rear bumper, but they avoid that one there for the time being as they get lap 6 underway there further back in the pack, as we'll check back in with this Hampstead versus Scott battle for the final place in the top 5 early on.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really important. Keeping half an eye on Ethan Greek-Galt, by the way, ladies and gents. Started on P2, involved in that opening lap incident, all the way down to 15th, and he's got a lot of work to do. And the next car for him, Adam Briggs, and then Tom Freer, is going to be to get him to 13. Have a look at them stack up as they come through the turn 7 sharp right hander that leads us onto the back straight, and then it's this long run, but it's not a straight. Oh no, it's not completely straight. There's some rise, there's some fall to it, and there's this right hand kink as they get all the way down here to what is labelled turn 9. A little bit of a kink, and then for Greek-Galt shows a little bit of the nose at 10A. Here to 10B, there's not really going to be any potential of an overtake on the offing this time by. So it looks almost as if they might be running a fraction more wing angle, not quite getting the straight line performance he requires to get that overtake done, Dan.
I mean, yeah, we heard it from James, when we got this, when we were talking to him before the race, the fact that, the drafting can have some advantage, but at the same time, everyone can just get stuck together, and then you're relying on mistakes or really ambitious moves. Like we just saw there, Jordan Ross up the inside of Dylan Rudd, that puts the 143 into 10th, and the 990 back to 11th there through turn 3. We'll see it once again. So the setup here back at turn 1, as they go Rudd wide, trying to stick in behind Brenton Hobson, and that just opens the door as a result for Ross to then be able to take the place by the time they get to the next right-hander there at turn number 3 and make the run down the S's.
And back up front, still status quo for Madison down. And albeit Josh Anderson's starting to show really clean pair of heels and looking to try and harass the rear bumper at this point in time. So starting to tighten up quite nicely for these guys, and for James Scott trying to rattle the cage of the TCR drivers. Hampstead will be the next victim for him, and deep back in the pack it's McNamara who is on the back end of that top 20 bubble. He's going to go side by side with Kurt Stenberg again. This time he's got the nose a little bit further up. This time he completes the pass, nearly gets a wrap on the rear bumper, and here comes Dylan O'Shea. Tries to get down the inside at turn number 1. All set up because Stenberg had to check up as they got out of the final corner to try and slot back in. So it's going to be O'Shea who steals it, but have a look in the background as Wayne Burke gets down the inside. So for going for an overtake, looking to try and get cheeky from rubbing panels with Sean McNamara, it's Kurt Stenberg who loses a whole host of positions by the time they get to turn 3.
He moves over to try and get up the inside of McNamara again, but O'Shea was already there, so we get almost 3 wide for half a moment. Then O'Shea leans through turn 1. That opens the door to Wayne Burke to cross underneath and get that job done. And trouble on the live feed as there's been a bit of contact involving Kurt Stenberg as well. He's just been given a tap in turn 6 by Robbie Gibbs in the number 2 ERT car, and that's now put the 47 down to 26. So what was 3 places lost in a single lap, it's just been another 4 spots lost in the process there. Unfortunately, that is a bit of the that absolute train that forms up, and the fact that you're not likely to lose 1 spot around here. You're at odds to lose multiple as a result here. So have a look at Wayne Burke again. In that cut, saw it coming. That turn 1 Scott to get the run up the hill to turn 3.
Yeah, and then this is all continued, unfortunately, for Kurt Stenberg, as he just continues to just find himself out of sequence. And it was Robbie Gibbs down at turn 6, the uphill sort of banked right-hand kink. So they come over 4, down through the hill, through the S's, 5 up the hill, and then keep your eye on Gibbs in behind him. So Gibbs gets a better run off of 5 and over the curbs there, uses a lot more of the curbs to try and get that drive, gets down the inside, but it'll be a question mark of did he get far enough alongside. And Stenberg tried to pinch him off, cover that momentum off, loses another 4. So for Stenberg, he started that lap, 19th, 20th? He's all the way back in 26. That's 7 spots, 6-7 spots on the lap. He's going to be a little bit hot on the collar, a little bit like his retires, Dan.
Yeah, well, it'll be in the hands of it is in the hands of the stewards now, I should say, because that's definitely been relayed to them. And so, we'll see what comes of mainly the one with Robbie Gibbs there. Of course, everything with the 9.5 drivers that comes under the definition of hard racing, and just leaning on each other as these cars permit. As we head back to the front of the field, meanwhile, continue to watch Madison down, and again, just managing his pace, keeping himself not under too much pressure. I mean, yes, Josh Anderson, teammate at TTR, probably not likely to put too much pressure on down, given Mads is racing for the championship tonight as well. But at the same time, I have heard it said before that there are no team orders at Trans-Tasman. And so we'll see, I guess, how that plays out towards the end of things, given that it's early days for everyone, championship or no, here on lap 10.
And the other thing to know, Dan, is that it's the last round of the season. There's a win in the offing. Wouldn't Josh Anderson like to chalk that up alongside of his name before they get to the end of the season? Road Atlanta, race winner for Josh Anderson. That's what's in the offing for Madison down. If he gets far enough up along the inside, Mads is just going to roll out of it. Second's good enough. I'm not interested in finding it. You heard him talk about, let's minimize the mistakes. Those high-risk moves, they're not on the cards tonight. They're not important. For Brenton Hobson, at the moment, he is getting an absolute hammering from the cars that are behind him because Ross has got by. And now it's going to be Jordan Ross who's going to be looking to assault the 88 car. Pulls to the left-hand side, gets out of the draft. He's going to be alongside as they get into the braking zone. And for Ross, that is 9th place taken away. Dylan Rudd looks to take advantage of the moment as well. A little bit cheeky, and then it's going to be Blake Warboys who gets checked up in behind them. And now it's going to be down to the inside. So here comes Dylan Rudd, looking to sneak his way inside the top 10. And he has done so when they get to the line. Will he do so when they get to turn 1? Here comes Warboys. Warboys had to back massively out of that. He had a huge run on the pair of them. It's not over yet. Still to the inside. Hobson cops a little bit of a whack at turn 1, and they'll all settle down when they get out the other side. Warboys sneaks into the 11th spot, and for Brenton Hobson, he started the lap inside of the top 10. He's now down to 12th place as well. It's been all happening as these tyres start to wear down. 5-second penalty coming the way of Robert Gibbs, and the last race of the season, it's starting to step up, boys.
Yep, every position out here is valuable, as demonstrated here. I think for Brenton Hobson, aggressive defense, trying to hang on to that spot. Was happy to let Jordan Ross do as a teammate. Dylan Wright able to take full opportunity. And yeah, just dipping the wheels in the grass there was enough to slow down Hobson. And yeah, Wallboys nowhere to go into turn 1 as Rudd sort of rides the middle of the road there to cover it off. And then, yeah, to try and stick around the outside of turn 1 is incredibly risky. And as a result, loses even more momentum, and that allows Wallboys to get in and seal his part of the deal there up into turn 3.
It's not over, by the way. Great Gold got his way by. So Great Gold's nicked that spot. So for Brenton Hobson, 10th back to 13th now. And he's looking to try and hang on to some spots. If I was in his shoes, I'm trying to cool those tyres down, hang on to them. This is the run down to turn number 5, and I'm going to assume it's out the other side. Wide and far for Hobson means that he's crawling all over those curbs. Gets another big wiggle on. And for Brenton Hobson, trying to settle that car back on down. Down. And I heard that we managed to catch up with Brenton Hobson. We've obviously talked about his want to get back into the championship, but the amount of time that it goes into these setups and into these races for a lot of the drivers. As Michael Angus, we hit lap 12 here tonight, and unfortunately for Eddie, it was the 12th of November. He sadly passed away, so for lap 12 tonight, we'll be following Michael Angus's journey around the track to celebrate the life that was for Ellie Klewitz.
And indeed, just, yeah, unfortunately, never really heard of Eddie before I first learned of the news of Eddie's, diagnosis and suffering with cancer late last week, and then the news when it broke across, I believe I saw it was the Harlem Motorsports Facebook page, that Eddie had passed away on the 12th of November. And indeed, it's cancer sucks, having personally lost a family member to it now many years back, but nevertheless, you always miss those people. But yeah, as Michael said, and I've heard a little bit about, we do have other drivers who wanted to run the Racing for Eddie ribbon and hashtag on the cars, like Michael is here tonight. And yeah, it's a great tribute to the fact that, yes, the community has its teams, its favourite drivers and the like, but we do have the opportunity and the capacity to come together in moments of heartbreak, grief, and pay our tribute and respects.
That's the important thing. It's an incredible opportunity that some of these drivers get to partake in, but it's also important to thank people make it possible, the people around them, the people that support them. And Eddie was one of those people, and it's also really, really important to pay tribute to those people that are around sim racing, not only that passed away, but also those that continue to support. Because it is team sport, it is a team game, team managers, everyone that's a part of the sim racing organisations that partake. It's not just drivers, there's crew chiefs, there's spotters, you name it. It's going on within the sim racing space, and it takes a team to come out the other side as a champion. It'd be interesting to hear from Madison Down about who were the people that really worked with him this year and been successful. It's been a tough and tricky championship to master, and it's been, we talked about the bad luck. It's just been every time somebody gets a lead of this championship, something gets in the way. And for Madison Down, he's looking to finally sit down at the end of this championship and say, nope, I had a great night at the office whilst leading the championship. I'm going to try and sign, seal and deliver this one. And for Andrew Gilliam, who managed to sneak out a race win as well. He's had a season to somewhat remember, but also a season, there's moments in the season he would rather forget as well.
Yeah, ups and downs are plenty, and for Andrew, yeah, as a result, sitting in P6 for the championship tonight. So we may be looking to try and crack into the top 5 with a good result, although the driver ahead of him on the points is Jake Burton, and Burton a couple of cars up the road there in that TCR train. The reason we flicked to Gilliam is we just missed it on the live pictures, but he did make a pass on Rick Kuznetsov, presumably either into 10A or along the straight beforehand. Here, we'll catch it on the replay now, thanks to Luke. So we'll see here in the draft of the 888 of Kuznetsov, and you're just going to move out here under brakes, and it's a fair way back, but yeah, Kuznetsov leaves the door open to make sure there's no dramas there, and that's a fairly straightforward exchange as a result.
And it was actually Andrew Gilliam I just watched sliding coming out of turn 7 onto the back straight on the current lap on the live pictures as well. So this top 5, there's nothing in between them at the moment. They're all still really attached together. And I've been having this conversation with a few different people of late, Dan, and probably another conversation that's worthwhile having again. The difference between real life and sim is obviously pedals, feedback, butt feel. But the key factor to me is the cost of sim racing. So much cheaper. You don't have to pay for track days. You don't have to pay for track time, as Tom Free is going to be the first driver to come to the attention of his pit crew and get that pit stop out of the way. And Dan, we were talking a little bit of strategy earlier on, about 34 laps, the duration of a tank here tonight. That's bang on the halfway mark. So it's going to be 2 stops. Do you split them in half? Does Tom Freer try and fill this tank right up right now in case there's a safety car later on? So that he gets a shorter stop at that point in time, or what's the strategy? What's going on inside these guys' heads?
Well, for a round like this, 2 compulsory stops are required, and mind you, though, compulsory stops can be served by simply going up on the jacks and going down again. But if you're going to do 2 stops, you might as well take tyres twice, and therefore you take at least 20 litres of fuel either time, maybe a little less depending on how refined your virtual pit crew are going tonight, given there's occasionally a bit of variance there in the exact time it takes to get the tyres changed over. But there is also the fact that over the course of a 68 lap race like we do have here tonight, we're looking at around 221 litres of fuel needed across the entire race distance. Take away the fact that we start with 111, you're left with therefore 110 that you probably need to put in to finish the race. You can split that in half, obviously, and do 2 55-litre fills. So, yeah, for Tom Freer, he's able to come in, probably top the tank off from where he started. Brenton Hobbs will be the second car to take to the lane there. So, Synergy Sim Racing willing to, go long in the middle of the race and then shorter, it seems, towards the end. That or get the stops done earlier. So there's a lot of opportunity that opens up for them now by coming in there on laps 15 and 16. But Myers had a small connection moment there, it seems, for him, but back out in position there for him in 3rd place.
I'm just actually having a little bit of a look up and down the field for the fastest lap of the race, and I thought, oh yeah, for sure that'll be one of the drivers that's up front. You know who it is? It's actually Blake Warboys deep in the pack. Now the fastest lap thus far has been an 18.651, and for the few drivers who've already jumped to the pit lane and done their pit stop, they may actually eclipse that with a lighter fuel load on board and fresh tyres. So it might be worthwhile keeping half an eye on sort of what's going on with that. For these drivers that are up towards the pointy end of the field, when they come to the lane, take things. I'm expecting James Scott to be one of the first drivers out of this group. Surely he'd have to have a crack at trying to do the undercut. He can't wait for the guys ahead of him to pit. That's just suicide. That's effectively saying to them, here you go, here's the race win on a platter if they all try and come down on lap 34. So there'll be some strategy games that start to get played as we get into the 20s in terms of lap numbers, particularly within this top group. But for now, they'll all sort of sit and settle, and for James Scott at rear bumper of Richard Hampstead get bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm starting to wonder, Dan, is there some fuel saving going on board here for the 088?
I would be shocked if there wasn't, given the fact that he's been on the back of this 5-car queue of TTR drivers and not made a particular move here. In fact, what I need to do is I need to go on board with James and I'll ride along myself and listen to how he's going here on this particular lap, for example, because yeah, this is the kind of thing where I'd expect, if he's not going to look for moves, which he doesn't seem to, strong in the opening sector, but there you go, look at that, turn 7, not as great of a run as, say, Hampstead ahead, so loses about a car's length to the 29 ahead of him, or pardon me, the 28, that's Hampstead's number there, and so as they build up the speed, just going to get 270, and he rolls all the way down the crest here to 10A, 10B, so that's how much fuel save James Scott's looking to make, and as you said, I think, yes, he will go to the pits early, get the tyres on a lap earlier, even though the track is cool tonight, and therefore the undercut isn't as powerful as it can be in cases of where it's warm up. Still, that's a lap on tyres, that's an advantage. Dylan O'Shea has had a moment down at 10 ATV, and he's very slow getting going as we go to the replay. I'm going to keep an eye on how he's getting that car back to the pits.
Yeah, because that'll be quite crucial for him as he gets down here. Is that an engine? That was definitely a downshift.
Yeah, engine's gone boom.
So for Dylan O'Shea, might be the first safety car of the evening for the drivers who have already completed their pit stop. Not what they're looking to see for the entire field. I mean, this will neutralise the pit lane strategy. He's in the lane though, so no safety car in the offing. And normally you keep half an eye on a few things if you're up and down the field. You got a spot, you got someone in the sim assisting you, keeping an eye out for incidents, keeping an eye out for any slow cars, anything like that happening, in case you need to jump through the pit lane as quickly as possible. What's going on down here at turn number 1? No, this was back towards our race start, just a reminder of everything that's happened thus far. By the way, Dan, it did come through from race control. No further action. That's a racing deal. Race on, boys, was what they thought of that. To be perfectly honest, you can see why they've gone with that.
I mean, yeah, turn 1, absolutely. Yeah, that turn 3 with Scott and with Gold. Still, I think, considering the circumstances, I would generally agree with that. call as well, because it was a very ambitious move there from Scott. He basically went into a gap that wasn't fully formed up the inside of Madison, because the track just widens a tiny bit there before it narrows again on the way into turn 1, right up on the inside. Madison preferring to sort of basically drive a straight line from his grid box up the inside there, rather than go and follow the track to the precise metre or so. And then, yeah, just afterwards there, Grid Gold trying to hang it around what would be the outside of turn 3. And James Scott trying to open up the entry to the same corner there. And a bit of communication there as to where the exact positioning of the white line in the cars were didn't quite line up.
Important to note as well for Dylan O'Shea, that is going to be season over. For Dylan, unfortunately, tumbling down the orders, night over, season over. And for a driver that showed promise, that showed improvement throughout the season, I think that's the best that he's ever driven. I had a few conversations with him throughout the season, just sort of said, you know, that's the best I've seen you drive in a long while. I was talking to him in relation to other series about different cars as well. As the GT3 series I last talked to him about, and I said, yeah, you're driving quite well. You know, there's a few games that have gone on, and I think he's cleaned up a lot of that. He's really come to the fore. Was probably one of my drivers to watch for the tail end of 2023, particularly after the Sandown round. Well, unfortunately, for the final round of the season, it's gone boom. And for Dylan O'Shea, was quite well up there in terms of the points as well. So for him, that's automatic qualification back to 2024. Will 2024 be the season for him that he's going to put the right foot forward and potentially finishing in the podium, coming into tonight's race, 7th in points as well. So top 10 achieved. Next season, top 5. Season after that, podium, you think?
He has the potential, yeah. I've known Dylan for a little while now. And yeah, he's had good pace on his good days. Sometimes, though, maybe not such a great time every now and again. It can sort of feel like, I guess maybe that's a thing with, maybe he's busy elsewhere and preparation didn't quite go to plan or something. I don't know the particulars of when his pace hasn't quite been there compared to his norm, but as you said, he's put on good results and the peaks are getting higher. So I guess it's a question of, has he got the interest in continuing to commit and move those marks higher again? We'll have to wait and see as we take a look out the back of Madison down here at the front of the field still. And yeah, all those drivers looking to just roll a little bit into turn 10A and they'll compress once again later on in the lap. Thanks to Brenny Myers having a moment connection-wise earlier. Top 5 or 6, sorry, to top 6 because James Scott's still there very much so, tracking these guys. Spaced out a bit, but also crucially, Andrew Gilliam has come to join the party there, make it 7 cars all lined up, pretty much nose to tail. Even then, Rick Kuznetsov only a couple of extra car lengths back to realistically make it our leading 8 in an unbroken pack.
I think one of the key factors about all of this, Dan, as well, is have a think about who's punching the hole through the air for this one. For all the TCR cars, is Madison down. So all of a sudden, I get the feeling Josh Anderson and Brenny Myers are actually in the box seat out of this one. So yeah, James Scott's going to trigger potentially what's going to be the strategy call of when they all pit. But have a think about it. Madison is punching the hole in the air, so he's got the most fuel to add out of these guys. So it's take the pain early for Mads, and unfortunately for him, he's going to have the longest fuel stop out of all of them. We're 21 laps in, so the 21st lap underway at the moment. There's more drivers coming to the attention of their pit lane crews as well. Sebastian Vandel, we saw him off on lap number 1, and unfortunately for him, there's damage to the front end of that car. He's in pit lane getting service as we speak. So he will attempt to rejoin. It's going to be, unfortunately for him, laps down. Now, once these lead cars go past, but also at the back end of the top 10. And pit stops are starting to come through. Hobson and Freer and Damian Johnson are the 3 that have made their pit stops on exiting pit lane for Tom Freer. So coming to the entry of pit lane on lap 14, and for Hobson and Johnson was 15 that they came into the pit lane as well, Dan. So they've now been out there for a fair while, and now James Scott comes to the pit lane, and we are just shy of the 3rd marker on tonight's race. About lap 22, lap 23 is that crossover, Dan. So he's looking for that undercut, and we talked about it. Well, he's found the right lap to come to the lane.
We're going to split this race up fairly evenly, it seems. So this will be curious to watch here. You would think, as you said, and I would expect it too, that Trans-Tasman Racing here with their top 5 drivers, they will respond to not give an advantage on fresh tyres. James Scott, but then again, we'll see if they choose to maybe do something a little different on the fuel. as well here. Because I can tell you, having just rode on board Madison down on the last lap, he's not going completely flat, of course, in turn. He's lifting a little bit here as they just come over the crest. Not as much as, say, what I heard from James Scott when he was back in P6 several laps ago. He was taking advantage of there being really on cue to roll a lot more. But, you know, Mads isn't going completely flat chat, but how about this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All of them decide to call James Scott on the bluff there and stay out on track. Now, for Scott, where has that 088 come out? In behind Brenton Hobson. He's been undercut by his own teammate who was way back down the order, and therefore no wonder the TCR cars, I think, are going to try and stay out another lap or two and maybe try and clear these SSR cars that are now fighting amongst each other a little bit.
Yeah, and I think one of the other big points as well is you've got 5 TTR cars at the front end of this race, Dan. Do you all of a sudden just sit down and go, well, hang on, we've got 5. We don't need all 5 up here on the same strategy. Do you say throw 2 at them? Do you send Richard Hampstead to the lane? Do you send Josh Anderson to the lane? Or if you're Brady Myers, all of a sudden I say, well, I've got to win this last round of the season to even have a shot. Everyone else is going to have a torrid night, but I've got to win. If I'm in Brady Myers' shoes, yeah, look, it's a team game, but, you know, I'm here to have a crack. I'm not going to sit idly by and just let them undercut me. I think if I'm in Brady Myers' shoes, I'm in this lap. I'm going to have a crack at the strategy. Why would you continue to follow?
Yeah, so the games here is, yeah, exactly. But I think what they're going to look at here is the fact that James Scott's come out in traffic. Now, obviously, there is a way to counteract that, is don't fill up as much on fuel. Sacrifice a couple of litres of fuel now in this opening pit stop, and you can get yourself 2-3 seconds up the road from James Scott, who's just being let go by his teammate Tom Freer there. So 707 willing to play the team game, and no surprises there, of course. That's what we would usually see there. So there is a clear way to get this working. Crucially, we'll wait to see, well, I'll be waiting to see here what this first full flying lap is like. He did actually set a purple sector whilst racing up behind Brenton and Tom, despite the fact that Brenton was sort of trying to race him for position. But yeah, critically, this lap here is going to be the one that's interesting. And we'll see if this gives an indication of whether TTR are making the right call or not up the front of the field. As we'll just check in quickly, Scott with the battle for 12th. Marcelo Rivera, Job Stewart and Brad Ratu all nose to tail, as the answer comes in the form of a 118.9 for James Scott. That is a very nice 4/10 of a second gain on your race leader on that last lap.
Yeah, but a 118.9 is also not the fastest up of the race. Thank you, Blake Warboys, for, I mean, he's really shown up tonight and laid down an absolute cracker. Started in 14th, up to 11th. Movers up and down the grid, by the way. Job Stewart up 8 places. I think he's the biggest mover. No, I'd be wrong with that, because it's a couple cars further behind him. It's Wayne Burke and Luke Rosella. Rosella's up 16 spots and Wayne Burke's up 15 spots, so they're making some ground at the moment, albeit that's pit lane strategy affected as we currently stand. And there's a few more cars, I think, just coming to the attention of the pit crews. Yep, indeed there is. So the game's on pit lane, and Jordan Ross coming into the lane on this lap as well, carrying Dylan Rudd in behind him. This will probably trigger the rest of the field to come in, because if James Scott's come in and he's made a ton of ground, everyone else will come by. By the way, for Dylan Rudd, he's just had to back up in the pit lane. He missed his stall, did not pull that car up nice and cleanly into his stall. So there'll be some time lost there for Dylan Rudd. But this race right about to come alive in terms of the pit lane strategy. Means it's going to be slower at the tail end of things from James Scott. Everyone was looking to save a little bit of tyre and a little bit of fuel in the early running for things. But the fact that there's now been, say, 5 cars coming to the pit lane, that gets the feeling we're moments away down from seeing a very, very active pit lane.
Yeah, we sure are. Looking at James Scott's stop time as well, since 27.5 seconds is what he did for that one there. Based on my rough understanding of the refill rate in this car at around 2.3 litres a second, James Scott's taken at least 63 litres of fuel into the 088. And so, I'll get back to you in a second on what that means for his fuel range. At least as a rough estimate. Certainly can't say that my numbers are going to be absolute science, so I can give you a minimum at the very least in terms of when the earliest he'd be in by.
Do you reckon he's filled the tank there? Because if he's filled the tank, that's lap, what would we be thinking about? Oh, gee, that's going to be 46 or so? 22 laps to the end?
Well,
actually, it'd be longer than that. It'd be 56. Sorry, my apologies. It'd be about 12 laps to the end.
I'd argue he's a couple of litres short of a full tank on that refill. Yeah, given he was saving in behind the TTR train, wouldn't have
Greg
burned
Galt's
it.
in.
Yeah, but yeah, even at full burn, he wouldn't quite have filled the tank. But pretty much within margin of error, I'd argue on that point. As indeed, it will still put Scott to the front, or not, because Rigault's going to do exactly what I suggested you can get away with. It cost him 7 seconds in fuel at the stationary time, but it'll get him track position in front of the 088 once again.
And that's critical, because that now sets the market to everyone that's up ahead of them as well, is that if you take this short fuel, you're going to come out ahead of James Scott. James Scott's got the least fuel out at the moment out of all these cars that have pit at the final stop. So he's filled that thing. He's really dosed a bunch of fuel in. The benefit for James Scott is he's got those bars to play with to really keep the attitude of the car the way that he wants. He wants that car turning in, doesn't want the heavy fuel load to take away from the agility of the 088 Commodore. And for Greg Gold, I don't hate this strategy, Dan, but gee, you don't want this to end up exactly the same way it did on lap 1.
I get the feeling it shouldn't, but that's a bit of an if. Yeah, look, of course, the other thing is that's 7 seconds in stationary time. Greg Gold is going to feel the pain in that second compulsory stop, as you rightly point out. That's not something that can just be quietly ignored. Barring a safety car, that would completely change the numbers around, and it would still mean Greg Gold would be hurting on fuel, but at the same time, not as much. Maybe halve that time deficit that the fuel, the stationary time in the pits for fuel would suggest, potentially. Because it'll really come down to how the safety car driver takes them around the track tonight, and how much the drivers out on track do what they can to save the fuel whilst they're circulating around there as well. As that's a very nice arrow. Thank you very much, Luke, to point that one out there. Particularly James Scott, that number to keep an eye on for stationary pit time as we await the Trans-Tasman cars and everyone else towards the front of the field yet to pit.
Well, it's really not brought, oh, well, it has now. It's this time they've brought a whole host of cars with them, and it's sort of half the field on each strategy. Is it's 15th for Ethan Green Gold, the first car that has completed their first compulsory stop. Those of you watching along at home that may not necessarily know a huge deal about the strategy here, it's effectively a bit like Afterpay from somebody who's never actually used Afterpay. You've got a bill, you've got a fuel bill you got to pay. We said it was, what, a full tank gets you to about lap 34. Well, that means you've got about another full tank of fuel to take. 2 pit stops, so 2 payments, if you will, of fuel to take. And you decide what order you want to make them in. But after those 2 payments, well, if you want to add a 3rd payment in there, you absolutely can. But nobody will be looking to do that. I think everyone will be trying to do it in 2 payments. But 111 litres of fuel payments to come out of the car. That's the way I think about it in my mind. Dan, is this about close enough?
I mean, it's an interesting analogy to be sure, because I wouldn't have thought to go down the Afterpay route. But hey, look, if the shoe fits, it'll work there. As looking there at Dylan Rudd for a second, driver who's putting in the fastest times on the board at the moment, and 1:18.624. For reference, that's a good 7/10 faster than our race leaders. Now, unfortunately for Dylan, he was a bit further back, as we do have a split strategy. Josh Anderson, I think it is, bringing the first of our Trans-Tasman cars to lane. Indeed, it is the 36 will peel down, but only him to make an undercut, potentially work on his teammates. Now, this will be critical. How long does he choose to stop for, and where does he come out in relation to James Scott? Because he'll need to get out ahead of him ideally, and there's a nice gap actually forming in between Scott and Greg Gold. In fact, Ethan Greg Gold would have had the fastest lap in the race, but he must have gone off track somewhere, because he's in 18.5 and didn't go purple. So this is the key marker as we watch Anderson's stationary time ticking up there on the tower as well. Be looking to try and get it somewhere between Greg Gold and Scott Sonnen. He'll easily clear Greg Galt's stationary time, but how much does he push it here as that clock ticks up? 23 seconds, so he will have a small debt to pay on fuel as Greg Galt now puts in a valid fast time, but the 36 of Anderson will still get out in front there.
Yeah, it's not by much either. But he does get out in front, and the critical factor is between him and James Scott. James Scott's got 5 extra seconds with the fuel on board. There's not 5 seconds between these cars. There is only about 3 seconds between them. So overall, Scott's made up 2 seconds of that fuel deficit. He's going to be in a great spot. And now this is sort of a testing the waters, I get the feeling, from Josh Anderson for the Trans-Tasman cars. They'll be talking about it. They'll be talking about the fuel numbers, the exact amount of fuel they added from where they were, and they'll know what that means exactly now in terms of strategy. Indeed, they'll they'll know a bit more than that, because here comes Madison Down. He's going to come to the pit lane, and he's not going to be coming alone. Jake Burton, Rick Kuznetsov are going to come in with him. And I tell you what, Dan, we're only about 4 or 5 laps away from the end of this fuel range. Potentially 6 if you've been mega saving, like a few of the drivers up the front are. And for those of you watching along and go, well, how does that play into your Afterpay analogy? Well, I found a few pennies stashed in the glove box of the car. I used them to add on the bill, take it off before it got sent to Afterpay. How's that, Dan? How we doing?
Yeah, that works too. That works pretty well there. I'm going to be very curious to watch you as well. Actually, stay with Down. This is a good shot to watch. Watching his pit timer tick up. He's going to take some more fuel. He's going to take, about a second or so more fuel. So Anderson will inherit the effective lead of the race. Greg Galt will go through as well. But crucially, Madison Down gets out ahead of James Scott. So does what he needs to do, gets the fuel deficit to Scott's stationary time as low as he can there. And Jake Burton also going to follow Madison Down through the lane in terms of stationary time as well. And they get out ahead both of them. So it does change the order around now, but it's about a second. Yeah, about a second or so that Josh in difference of fuel. As thank you very much there to Luke to bring it up on the tower once again and allow you to all feast your eyes on the stationary times as what's happened to Luke Rosella out there. 11 seconds. Okay, so that's basically just covering off tyres, give or take about 2, maybe 3 seconds of fuel there.
Well, he said he wanted a little bit of track position, is what that stop says to me, Dan. So, indeed, he's gone out, he's grabbed some track position, and from a rear of the grid start, after incidents in the previous race at Road America, for Luke Rosella, it's not been an easy night at the office. This is one of the ways he can buy himself a track position. The biggest problem he'll have is if there's a safety car now. He's in a world of pain.
Yes, yeah, he is. I mean, he gets the fuel in here, get him to, actually, I'll try to do some numbers on how far Rosella can go based on that 11-second stationary time, as Brady Myers is going to come out behind Greg Galt, but he's going to get the overcut on his teammates, and we see how gets in with about 2 seconds less fuel than Madison Down to slot himself ahead. So again, another driver is going to have to pay it back later in the race, but Anderson with clear air on Greg Galt, he's going for that race win. No surprises there based on what I've heard about the way drivers at TTR are going to run a race like this. But this is critical for the overall result, as Hamstead has also put himself out right on the nose of Jake Burton there. And Andrew Gilliam's got the overcut on James Scott as well. Gilliam's fuel time, similar to Brady Myers, so we'll owe a couple of seconds in relation to the 088 at the very least.
Yeah, so a few of these drivers have put some money away. They've been saving their pennies, made that big first after payment. Look, I'll just send my application to Larko to be his understudy. You going to sign off on that one? Do I get a little bit of a review from you, Dan? No?
Well, the analogies might be worth a chance, but look, I'll have to leave it up to the man himself, but that might be also one for later down the track, as it were. There's a bit of fighting further back here. Blake Warboys, unfortunately, actually loses 2 spots in a handful of seconds to Dylan Rudd and Rick Kuznetsov in the 9.5 SimSport machines there. Looks like Warboys may be looking to save a bit of fuel down the straight and willing to sacrifice some positions for that purpose, as Madison Down will move the fastest lap of the race marker to a 1:18.540 there on lap 31. So looking to make full benefit of his fresh tyres as he now runs in effectively. Yes, it is effectively 4th place, because we still have Kurt Stenberg and Mike Taliancic who owe us a pit stop here to complete the cycle for this opening round of compulsory stops.
Actually, an interesting thing was, Dan, when we were talking about fuel burns prior to the race, you actually said it was about 2.3 litres a lap. And guess how much fuel's added about a second? You just said 2.3 litres a lap. So effectively here, we can just say for every second they were static, that's how many laps worth of fuel they've added to the tank.
That's a good point there, yeah. Actually, that's a very good point. Thank you for bringing that one up, because for some reason that completely escaped my train of thought. As Stenberg has come to the lane in the 47, and he will now begin his service, so that will see him tumble down the tower as he's about just over halfway down the pit lane, actually more like 2/3. So had to go a fair way in terms of his initial transit before he could get to the box and start service. But yeah, that's actually a valuable point there. I think in the case of Luke Rosella, 11 seconds. I calculate that to be about 24.5 to 25 litres. That gets you about 10, maybe 11 laps, which would be 10 laps. 11 would be if you could massively save. But in Roselle's case, he's not going to be looking to save all that much, I'd say, at this point. His strategy kind of relies on a lot of pace. And as you did point out, also relies on a green flag cycle of stops as well. On board Richard Hampstead here, who's closed up his margin to Madison Down for the moment. But again, these Trans-Tasman drivers will probably look to ride together for a bit. Not put too much pressure on, but Brady Myers looking at Ethan Grigolt's left rear. No, we'll roll out of it down into 10A, 10B on this occasion.
I think that's the debate we're sort of seeing rage at the moment is if we've got overlap, if we've got enough going down there, we'll then absolutely go on with the move and potentially try and skip away. But if we haven't got that overlap, roll out, save that little bit of gas. Keep your eyes on Josh Anderson as he's going to continue down the road. Michael Taliancic is the only driver thus far to not have completed his first pit stop. And we are at the halfway mark at the conclusion of this lap. So you get the feeling for Tally. He's going to be coming in, and it will be short stops from him. 2 short stops, split this race to the end from here. It's going to be 2 17-lap stints, so he's going to have fresh tyres, and he's going to be attacking and be aggressive to the tail end of this race. And from any time from here, we could see drivers come down to the attention of their crews, and that'll be it for them. That'll be their final time to the end of the race. They can fill the tank and get home from here. Critical lap now reached, and there was another graphic that Luke just threw up from Race Stars TV just a moment ago. And it was the fastest lap of the race. And I think the critical factor, well, there's 2 factors that are a part of that one. Well, actually, there's even 3 as now start to think about it as well. Track temps come down a degree, so there is a little bit of lap time within that. Number 2 is fuel loads that are on board these cars will be a little bit lower. And number 3 is, I think the pace of this race has come up a little bit, Dan, because the fuel-saving games, they're not being played as hard anymore. Now it's about track position, and Brady Myers gets down to the inside this time by on Ethan Grigol. There's 5 laps difference in terms of the tyres. Myers gets it done as he gets 10A, 10B. Now the difference becomes, can Brady Myers skip clear? For Ethan Grigol, 5 laps is the difference in terms of tyres. To Brady Myers, it's 4 to Madison Down, 5 to Hampstead, 4 to Burton, 5 to Gilliam. So there is a little bit of a tyre offset coming into this equation, and Brady Myers has now got the responsibility. Go off and in pursuit of teammate Josh Anderson, or can Anderson just start to set the track alight? Can Josh Anderson just disappear down the road? Can Josh Anderson put the sting in the tail of the final round of season 2023 from Road Atlanta? Is it going to be race pace time, or is it still going to be holding back that little bit at the moment, Dan?
Well, you look there at the lap time difference between Josh Anderson and Brady Myers. Now, lap 30 and 31 are the in-lap, out-lap for Anderson there, pardon me. So the numbers a bit skewed. No, that's the wrong way around. That's the in-lap, out-lap for Myers. That's why it's in regs. It's how much time longer Myers' lap was. But when you look at that there, with the clean air on the nose of the 36, the margins are small, but has pulled about 2.5 tenths on the number 22 that's now in behind. I'm curious to see how this lap translates here, as that's there, the delta swings in terms of the actual track position and time loss. But yeah, we'll wait to see here at the end of lap 36. Pardon me, it should be 35, apologies. Because Taliancic just started lap 36, is in the pits now finally. As there we go, Anderson's time flicks up, Myers comes through, and again, it's very small, but technically advantage Anderson there with the clean air.
And for Brady Myers, what's the response now? He's got clear of Greg Galton for the TTR cars. The queue has been broken up. That's the key thing. They talk about it a lot in F1 where there's only 2 cars to a team. It's when you've got 2 drivers equal, it's about breaking the other team. On Logitech Pro Invitational, it's a little bit the same, breaking the other team. Greg Galton has successfully done that. Well, it's now a little bit of a chess match. So to TTR, the move is now yours. What's the response been? For Brady Myers, the response has been get the overtake done and see if I can disappear down the road. But for Ethan Grigol, all of a sudden, a little bit of a toe does make him harder to pass. Although this time by, Madison Down's a fraction closer to the rear bumper of the number 7 Logitech coloured car for the Evolution Racing Team entry of Ethan Grigol. What's the defense like? Does Down roll out when they get down into 10A, 10B? You betcha. So Down is now trying to repay a little bit of that fuel bill. Now he's trying to scratch around in the glove box. Is there something in the cup holders here? Is there $1 coin somewhere that can be found in terms of that fuel bill? Well, keep your eyes on for that final pit stop, because that will tell the story.
Yeah, every little bit of fuel saving counts here, and that's certainly been put to good use. Critically for me, despite everyone here sort of, and also part of this is don't disrupt the momentum and the flow of the group. These guys here are all racing to stay ahead of James Scott when it comes to corrected strategy. The only way they do that is they keep their average lap times quick. You start fighting each other for every spot in this bunch. 1, Josh Anderson runs away at the front. 2, James Scott gets an easier time at the second stop, of course. So these guys here, and also they're going to look to save fuel in addition to the third point, so that they can minimise the deficit here whilst they're all running nose to tail. And Scott, he'll be doing a little bit of lifting, but not as much, given he doesn't have a direct slipstream line to Andrew Gibbons. So there you go, 1.6 seconds or so for him of air between the back bumper of the Tur 1 and the nose of the 088. So that's what they're going to be all trying to minimise the deficit of James Scott and just not rock the boat in that group of cars. As we check out Tom Freer here for a moment. He's currently splitting Rick Kazantov and Dylan Rudd apart for this battle, which is back here in 12th place, and it could be 11th, but I think Kazantov's gotten through as part of how that's worked. And there you go, right up the inside into 1080. In fact, can confirm Kazantov got through at a time prior. And now it's both of the 9.5 cars that have been sticking together, Scott, for the most part of this race. Now through on Tom Freer. Blake Woodboys is right behind as well, as Brad Ratsu doing a bit of lawn mowing there off the final corner as well.
Yeah, it's important to note as well, Tom Freer came to the attention of his pit crew on lap 14. I was looking up and down the field for where the cars were that did make that early pit stop. For Brenton Hobson, he is now 12 seconds, I think. No, sorry, my apologies, not quite. It's 10.2 seconds behind at the conclusion of that lap of James Scott. Remember, James Scott came out behind him and had to overtake him. That's how much time he's lost to that. And for Brenton Hobson, remember at the start of the race, he was flirting in and around the back end of that top 10. I think he pit from about 12th or 13th. So he's -3 at the end of this strategy. So it has not worked for Brenton Hobson. Tom Freer is a little bit of a different question. I think it has worked for him right now. The longer this run goes on, the further backward he was going to trend. But for Brenton Hobson, he was losing spots already. He wanted to get out there. He wanted to, and I talk a lot with strategy about put yourself in control of your own destiny. And for Blake Warboys, he's going to try and put in control of his own destiny. It'll be his destiny when they get down here to 10A and 10B. Tom Freer on ailing rubber, going a little bit backwards. Another easy pass there for Blake Warboys, and Bradley Ratchu with the next car to line up and see if he can find his way past Tom Freer. So for the guys who are on older rubber, it did work earlier, and now it's not working. Now it's going backwards just a little bit. And that race lead margin is starting to grow and grow and grow. And I get the feeling, Dan, that Hobson is going to be the first car to pit lane. You just want to feel in control. You want to have a crack at something. And for Brenton Hobson, had to pit early. I think Tom Freer, I don't think he had a choice. He had a little bit of damage on that car, which is, I think, what triggered that pit stop potentially. Had to get a fresh set of rubber on because the rear tyres were dancing all over the road.
That would make some sense there, yeah, because Hobson and Freer were two of the big outliers on the pit strategy, because it also basically, apart from, you then commit to a very long stint and you either do it in the middle of the race or the end of the race. If you can get it done early on in the race, I think they'd much rather that here. Critically, when we're talking about the front of the field, on that last lap, advantage went to Brady Myers by about, it's almost 2/10 actually. And in fact, there we go, actually bring up, thank you very much there, Luke, 0.238 gained by Brady Myers, and he was gaining a little bit in the hundreds and thousands on that run down the back straight. We'll see here in a second, I'll update for us what the numbers look like for lap number 39. Another 10th and a half. So this is potentially telling me now, Anderson does have 2 more laps on his tyres than Brady Myers. Maybe this is a case of now Brady, there's a little bit of a crossover here with the tyre life, but also hasn't been driving as hard, even whilst he was trying to get past Ethan Grigol, and now starting to reap the advantage here as we stretch this second stint out of 3 that the drivers will have to do here around Road Atlanta tonight.
Even so, for Brady Myers, has fallen off 2/10 from his fastest lap of the race, but for Josh Anderson, it's 5/10, so it's half a second now compared to their fastest laps. He's into the 19.1s that last time by, and fastest laps on the left, and most recent laps on the right. Same for Richard Hampstead though, 18.5 now to a 19.0, so he's starting to fall off just a fraction. But for the drivers in behind him, Down staying quite consistent. He's looking after that tyres. That tends to be the mark of a better driver, is they're able to maintain that pace for a lot longer. For Jake Burton, now it's going to be his opportunity to see if he can push himself past Richard Hampstead. Down the inside, it's an 8. Job done when they get to 10B. Neither of these boys held up because they've got a mission to do. And for Jake Burton, he's on the fringes of the draft right now, so he's got to put that foot down. And you got a feeling that maybe Richard Hampstead was starting to fall off the back of the lead group. And for Jake Burton, had to get that job done. If he wants to maintain touch with the guys that are up ahead, that was quite critical to get that one done for the TCR guys.
Yeah, and I've just noticed, I think Brady Myers had a bit of a slide through turn 1 because he's now got Rick Gold all over the rear of his number 22 as they work their way down the S's. I might actually go have a look at that to confirm or deny. Actually, it'll come up on the replay. Let's see, because I could have sworn the 22 was out of shape on the exit here of turn 1. Scott, he'll get into the corner. That looks okay. There's a little bit of bobble as he hits the curb slightly. And there's opposite lock-in coming. Yep, there you go. That's not what Brady Myers wants, because that's just going to put a little bit more heat in the rears. And yeah, it just gets them the rhythm and momentum a little crossed up there, up towards turn 3. So I'm curious to see how much that's hurt him. I think it was close to a 10th or so. We'll see at the end of the lap what the lap numbers look like. In fact, yeah, I can see it in my sectors on this current lap. In the opening half of it was a 10th in the opening half, and we'll see it in a moment. In fact, look at the comparison here. Myers, Grid Gold, across the line they come. It'll update for us. In the end, Grid Gold close enough, Scott, that it only cost Brady 200s to him.
There's nothing between these top 3, by the way, in the lap time. Josh Anderson across the line, 19.017. Brady Myers, 0.52. 0.75 for Greek Gold. They're all within the 19 zeros, all 3 of those drivers. We'll throw it back. Madison Down, the fastest of the top 5, 0.13. And for Jake Burton, 0.31. It gets better than that. Richard Hampstead, 0.89. And Andrew Gilliam is the first driver. So it takes us 7 drivers to get out of the 19 zeros on that most recent lap. My word, look at it. James Scott, 0.37. So there's 7 of the top 8 drivers within 100th of a second of each other. Oh, sorry, within a 10th of a second of each other. My apologies.
I mean, yeah, even so, yeah, the margins, yeah, was it 0.13 at the minimum? Highest number that's under a 19.1 is a 0.89. So yeah, well, we were talking 7.5 hundredths. Like, yeah, it is pretty absurd how tight the margins are at the moment. But in Gilliam's pace, he's only a couple of hundredths further on back as well. So like, there's absolutely nothing in it. Everyone is running to manage the car and the tyres and a lap time, it seems. Crucially, James Scott is just, making a bit of inroads on Gilliam. It's slow progress though, as he keeping to a number on pace as well. As we look at Blake Warboys once again. Still in P12, but he's close to the back of Dylan Rudd here. Could be looking to eye off an exchange in position at some point, but we just saw their lap times flash up. A 19.18 from Kuznetsov, a 1.84 from Rudd, a 1.78 from Warboys. Again, we're literally having to split hairs to find differences in the lap times for these drivers who are grouped up together, wherever it may be on the track, it seems.
And something else to keep in the back of your mind as well is the first of our drivers to get through the lane and get their second compulsory pit stop out of the way is going to be those drivers at the tail end of the field, the drivers that were on those ailing tyres. Brent Hobson, Thomas Freeman have both done their secondary stop, and they are back out and cracking. So is Luke Rosella. So there's 3 drivers who have already come to the attention of their teams, and Luke Rosella, after short filling on that first stop, has had to pay that margin back and pay it back quite aggressively. So at the end of lap 41, they'll all come to the attention of their crews. It's going to be, from here, a 27-lap run to the end of the race on this rubber. And for these guys, is that a little bit too far? For Brent Hobson, it was lap 15 that he came down. He got all the way through to lap 41. So 26 laps. He's effectively split the back half of the race into 2 nice and equal stints as best as he possibly can. But he had to stem the bleeding, and the bleeding has indeed been stemmed.
Yeah, this will be important to watch now. I mean, as you said, Rosella with that alternate strategy, the offset strategy, as it were, nearly paying the price. 36 seconds stationary in the box for this second stop of his to get it all sorted. In behind them is Michael Angus. Unfortunately for Michael, he's actually not completed 2 stops yet in this race, as been on his tyres here since lap 21. So he'll be looking probably to come to the lane in the next little while, given that based on that pace, we'll do a couple more laps, try and shorten up his final stint, I would think. And you also see he's barely ahead of our race leader, so we're probably looking to not go down a lap on track just yet. Maybe goes down a lap by pitting early based on that performance in the opening part of the race, though.
Josh Anderson continues to lead the way. Now it's back under that second marker. So Brady Myers is coming. And Brady Myers on the last time by 1:18.831. So dipped it back into the 1:18s. And again on this lap, he's taken 2.5 tenths now out of Josh Anderson. And Anderson is going to be in trouble. And it's not going to be long at all. And that draft really starting to help. Once you break that second marker, once you're into just under a second, all of a sudden you catch at a rate of knots. And now coming up on speed traffic as well is Josh Anderson on that Michael Angus car. The Racing Freddy entry. All Fishy Motorsports. Unfortunately for Michael Angus, the times have just not been as competitive as he necessarily would have liked tonight. Hasn't dipped into the 119s basically at all for him, unfortunately. He's just not got pace. He hasn't found anything.
Unfortunately, is going to be the first car to go a lap down in this race. It is still circulating. We have lost Sebastian Randell and Dylan O'Shea from their incidents earlier on. So it does mean we are left with 29 runners and 28 on the lead lap. As in all of this, Brady Myers has really found something, but Anderson will say, yeah, that's enough. He comes to the pit lane here at the end of lap 45. Actually, saw Michael Angus in the background too, but there you go. Will concede the pit stop by coming in. There, that puts the clean air back on the nose of the 22. What can Brady Myers do? Dylan Rudd further on back in the field is going to join Anderson in the pit lane as well. But crucially, watching to see where Anderson cycles out as he's just hit his box now and begins to put the final amount of fuel required in to finish this race off.
How good is this drive from Ethan Greekgold, though? 5 laps older tyres than the rest of the drivers around him, and after that incident, lap number 1 was outside the top 10. He's now effectively in what was 3rd place when Josh Anderson came to the lane. So this is monstrous. But for Madison Down as well, he's taken on 2 seconds more fuel than Brady Myers. He's taken on 3 seconds more fuel than Greg Galt. Jake Burton, the highest of the top 5, the most amount of fuel that's been added to him. So he's got the smallest amount to add, but he's 1.5 seconds off of the rear bumper of Madison Down. So for me, it's effectively going to be maybe a 4-horse race when you think of it, but you've still got to consider in the fuel margin that James Scott's got over a lot of them. You know, he's not all that far away, and he has taken a substantial amount more fuel, but it's not, for my liking, substantial enough to overcut Jake Burton at the moment. And then Greg Galt's going to come in, and critically behind them is James Scott. Saw them all coming, and he's going to come as well. He's not going to wait to get undercut. Fresh rubber time. It is time to put the hammer down. Fuel saving be damned. We're coming to the lane, and we're going to race on our hands with 24 to go.
That's be one to watch here.
Less than that.
Yeah, Anderson's stationary time, 22.9, call it 23 seconds for the number 36 Trans-Tasman racing car. Be curious to see James Scott, realistically, given where he's sitting and the pace that these guys out here are setting, he's going to have something in the order of an 18, 19 second stop to even be really close to contesting this pit stop here. Is watching to see what the number's going to be. But yeah, Anderson, who was at the front of the field, should get through and does get through. Although James Scott indeed has 19 seconds stationary time, so yeah, that's sort of telling there. And does come out in a little bit of clear air. Does have Robbie Gibbs though on older tyres ahead of him, splitting Anderson and Scott. And crucially for me, the gap I'm seeing about 4 seconds between Josh Anderson and James Scott for fuel. So I think that's only about 2 or 3 seconds gained in the pit lane. I would think the rest of the TTR cars are safe, but they'll continue to come piecemeal as it's Brady Myers up next in the number 22.
Yep, so he's going to come down, and now it's Madison Down's turn to come back to the race lead. And now they just trickle. Do you all of a sudden, just because of where they've come out in terms of the traffic, If I'm sitting there and I'm spotting for TTR, the word in the air is stay out, stay out, stay out. Risk of traffic, risk mega. Because right now for James Scott, for Greek Gold, for all of those guys, they're in traffic. They're going to have to get by Robert Gibbs, and the word will be coming their way, courtesy of Josh Anderson, who will have the intel. So there's a few more cars getting out of the way. Sebastian Flock to the pit lane. It's going to be Rasu, Warboys, Kuznetsov, all 4 of those drivers in the pit lane on this lap. There's going to be more that's added to them as well as another driver I thought just peeled off. He went down pit lane. Kuznetsov, Warboys, Rasu, and Flock were was only the 4 drivers that time by. That was Dylan O'Shea's number 19 car. Still sat there and reserved to the role of spectator for the remainder of tonight's proceedings. Although if there's a race to watch, this one hasn't been half bad.
It's been a bit of a fuel game up until now. It hopefully will soon become, the out-and-out sprint that we'd be looking for, as Jake Burton will peel in and he'll use all of the pin entry and the Armco just ever so slightly to pull that one up. He's followed in by Andrew Gilliam as well. So as how about that, though? They're on track. Look who's taking the effective lead of the race. It's not Josh Anderson, despite that blistering fastest lap. Indeed, the 22 of Brady Myers has been able to get out ahead. Brady putting in, despite having to put in 24 seconds, 19.7. So that tells me there, Myers, despite closing up on Anderson towards the end of the stint, went pretty aggressive on fuel saving to try and minimize deficit, and it's paid out beautifully for him there on the track. And look at the gap back to James Scott still. So there is a margin for the TTR cars to come out into behind Anderson if they haven't been fuel saving enough, unlike Brady, or they're coming out in, well, basically on top of Brady, or perhaps even slightly ahead as well. And I think that's the thing. Madison down, watch for him to be coming out slightly ahead of Brady Myers, given that he didn't really make any moves in that middle phase of the race, and he took the most fuel of the TTR cars, barring Jake Burton in the opening stint.
But for Josh Anderson, he was 0.7 of a second quicker on Madison Down. Down can't stay out here. He's got to pit. He's got to pit just about this time by. If he stays out another lap, he is going to be in absolute all sorts. And indeed, he's kicked on. He's kicked on. For Brady Myers, look at the time stuck in the pit lane. It was minimal. It's what it had to be. But all of a sudden, does that raise some fuel question marks in this final stint? Did he save enough in that middle stint? He didn't accelerate up onto the rear bumper. You mentioned it, of Josh Anderson at a rate of knots. He got by. He did all the moves at the right time. Does he have some fuel that he needs to save in this final stint? For him to win the championship, it's all got to kick off. James Scott is still too close. Should Madison Down have a mistake in this final stint and finish outside 14th spot, James Scott would be a champion. And James Scott's come out in a relatively good spot at this point in time. So the problem then for Brady Myers becomes he has to finish on top. It has to be Madison Down from 33rd, and then James Scott must finish 16th or worse. That's the equation. And then for James Scott, if he wins, Down has to finish 14th or worse. That's the only number on Madison Down's list. That's all there is, 14th. That's all it requires in the final stanza of 2023.
And watch here now, end of lap 50 for Madison Down.
Surely.
He should, I would think it would be wise to come in, and that's not going to be an entry into the pit lane though. So he's going to try and get himself the best tyres for the end of the race here. Potentially this would be the play, as Richard Hampstead will bring the number 28 TTR Mustang to the lane. But again, as you said, the tyre benefit from undercutting, even though the temperatures are cool and it shouldn't be hurting these tyres too much, still losing at least half a second a lap to someone like Josh Anderson or Brady Myers, even more, 6/10 plus for Madison Down. And on that number also with Brady Myers, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a little short on fuel to go flat out. It sounded like I heard a little bit of a lull from him into 10A, 10B, but that's just, you could possibly cover that up as being sort of just keeping the car steady, not overworking the front tyres on the initial braking application as well. So all in all, I think Brady Myers is definitely doing what he can to put himself up the top of the order tonight. And I guess for Madison Down, yes, there's the chance to win, and that would be nice, but he just needs to finish well, and he's certainly been on track to do that. That might also be the decision there from him to do what he needs to do and not too much else.
Well, keep an eye on Kurt Stenberg, who sits 24 points behind Robert Gibbs in terms of how things sit at this point in time for Stenberg. He stayed out. He's got to do something different. Marcelo Rivera, he's 6 points further back, so he is at 30 points below the cut line. Must outscore Robert Gibbs by that amount, and he's not going to do it at this point in time. And for Gibbs, he's sitting pretty. He's doing all that he needs to potentially do. For Thomas Freeman, he's actually inside of the at-risk group, and he has had a torrid night at the office for Thomas Freeman. He sits in 22nd at the moment. He is on some of the older rubber that's going around, so he is going to continue to drift further and further back. Will it be enough from Freeman? You get the feeling that when you've got yourself effectively a 70-point buffer, I think it's 66 points for Freeman back to Rivera. So 60 points back to Stenberg, and you've just spotted something, Dan?
Well, it's right there on your pictures, Scott. We've got ourselves Richard Hampstead, Ethan Griggold, and Andrew Gilliam always going three wide into turn one there. And that was only avoided by Gilliam deciding that maybe waiting another chance might be the best course of action there after a bit of defensive driving from Griggold as well. That is interesting. Now I'll have to maybe go have a look and see how that happened as you're calling downs in. And there it is, confirmation on the timing tower that he crosses over the cones on pit entry. So now let's see if this overcut plays any benefit. I would expect Myers to the lead of this race, given how little fuel he took on in the second stop from saving, and also the about seconds margin he's made to Anderson. Down was on strategy with Burton in the opening stint fuel-wise. Burton did end up taking 19 seconds of fuel, so maybe that's where he slots in. It might be behind Burton, and then you're talking only a second and a half. Try and get yourself in rhythm, up to speed with James Scott there or thereabouts. Is waiting to see what the magic number is going to be for the 77. Myers will inherit the lead. Anderson to second, Burton to third. Madison Down is going to come out behind James Scott in P5.
Ooh, doesn't that throw something into the water at the tail end of this championship? Richard Hampstead's going to come out. He'll be P6. So your corrected running order. Final pit stops of 2023 have now been completed. Madison Down pits out of the race lead, drops back to 5th. It wasn't a quick stop, and all of a sudden, that actually puts a huge question mark, I reckon, over Brady Myers in terms of fuel. I don't think he's got enough. He knows what he needs to do. Brady Myers very, very aware of what needs to happen within that car. He knows the amount of fuel he'll need to save. And Josh Anderson is within that second margin behind him. Took 2 tenths out on that most recent lap. Burton took 3 out of him. James Scott took 2 cents out of him. There is going to be a race at the end of this thing. And Brady Myers is going to be one of the first drivers to come to the attention of his crews at the final stop. And he's going to have the biggest fuel bill to pay. And he is going to be scrapping about for every single cent. Those 1 and 2 cent coins that went out of shop, what, 40 years ago now? He's going to be scrabbling for every single one of them in the glove box, underneath the seat. He'll be ripping up the carpet to try and find some of that fuel bill that he can pay out on track, because that's what it's going to take if he's going to win for Road Atlanta.
And yeah, this is the chosen decision from Brady Myers, is take the track position now, and he can dictate the defense from here, deciding that he'd rather not be on the attack. He'd rather lead it from the front here with 15 laps to go at Road Atlanta. And yeah, that fuel number is a bit of a question mark. I mean, Jay Burton was on a similar strat to Madison Down. It makes you wonder if maybe Jay Burton also will have a fuel number to answer for as well somewhat. And Madison Down, instead of trying to play the fuel numbers and games like everyone else around him, he, it seems, has chosen to do so in the back half of the race. Has decided, I'll put in enough fuel to make it home, no questions asked.
But that first stop, it comes down to what did they take at the first stop and the second stop. So it was a shorter stop for Myers at both of them. Jake Burton at the first stop was 24.5 seconds static, so he dumped a load of fuel in there. So he had the room to take less fuel at the second stop. And that's the critical marker. And every single time I see a sector time, I see anything pop up on the charts, Myers is slower than a lot of them. Indeed, Anderson is on that rear bumper as they go through 10A, 10B. They're underneath the bridge at the crest of the hill. Down is coming. Down will have enough fuel on board. He is going to go hard. Yeah, Brady Myers has got a big, big fuel question mark. He is going to be wringing the dirty rag, the oily rag, into the engine compartment at the end of this race, willing this thing home, because he's got a big question mark over his name. He's got a lot to do in the dying stages, and not only has he got a teammate on his rear bumper now, but guess who just joined the picture? James Scott's coming hard at him. It's not quite there at the moment. Sorry, my apologies. 3 seconds back, it is 2 teammates that follow him. Does Josh Anderson say, I just want this race win? Forget it, Brady, I'm coming by.
Yeah, I mean, the working theory that I will expect is that these drivers are here for the win tonight, for the most part. There will be some consideration in the championship here. Of course, they don't want to knock one of their teammates who has an outside chance in the championship out of this race, but very much for the most part, the general way I've heard it said before is that there are no team orders at Trans-Tasman. And so these guys are all here for the individual race glories. There you go, down the middle of the road from Brady Myers to cover off Josh Anderson, which covers off Jake Burton as well. And as they park the buses down the centre of the track rather than the racing line. If they keep this up, this easily becomes a 5-car fight, because already Madison Down's gone from being about 6 seconds off the margin. Look at that, 19.9 from Brady Myers, having to park the bus in defence and fuel saving too. Yeah, he's probably a good 3 or 4 seconds in stationary fuel short. That's that's like 7 to 8 litres. I wouldn't think it's that much, because that's a lot. That's too much fuel to save over a 20-lap run. So it might only be like 2 to 3 litres a lap short on fuel. But even so, that's a big ask, because these guys behind are looking to commit to full pace.
And how difficult for the guys. So obviously the Trans-Tasman guys, Dan, are talking to each other. But when you're fuel saving, you're not on the brakes. So you're looking for a car attitude. What are you looking for to tell you when the guy ahead lifts?
It's a good question. There might be a tiny bit of body pitch in the car, but realistically, in a game like this, you're more likely looking for just the sheer closing differential when we get to the end of the straights. Because look at that there, Anderson. I think he'll feel or see, and I guess in a sense you then sort of feel it in a way. A bit hocus-pocus sort of kind of descriptive words I'm using for this one here, in addition to just straight up seeing it on their screens, that they close the gap before the brakes get put on, because, Brady having to roll it into the corners. Gets it back to a 19.2 on that lap, but, he's holding these guys up something fierce. The gap to James Scott there, you can see in the bottom right-hand of screen, now down to 2.8 seconds, and that's bringing Madison down along a half second behind as well. As look at the margin cut there as Myers continues to save fuel and try and defend this race lead.
Yeah, there's not much in it now. It is going to be nothing. And remember, we've still got 12 laps left to go, so we've still got a huge amount of time. There's still in the effective about 15 minutes worth of race time. That's what we've got left approximately. There's 12 laps the journey. Well, it's now down to 11 and a half. And for Brady Myers, that checkered flag cannot drop soon enough. Let's take a moment while there's a little bit of a breath of fresh air, because Scott and Down are right next to each other on the road as well, so that'll unfold. But for Rick Kuznetsov, he's had a quiet night at the office. P9 for him. Andrew Gilliam sitting at 8th. Greg Galt 7th. He's in behind Richard Hampstead. There's a number of drivers who are putting good foot forward in the final stanza of 2023. Jordan Ross tags in at the back end of the top 10. Dylan Rudd just outside. Rivera's not going to do enough, unfortunately. He's going to have to come back through the qualifying series, you get the feeling. Blake Warboy's back in 15th at the moment, held the fastest lap of the race early on in the running. Is there anyone that's caught your eye tonight, Dan, that you sit down, you take out your hands and go, yeah, that's just a good job, well done?
I mean, yeah, I'll admit, being here tonight and basically only tonight, trying to get my head around the championship title, I guess I'm on a short-term focus. If anything, I'm definitely impressed by the way these two guys here, Wayne Burke down the 89, it's Adam Breezy, passes by his teammate Luke Rosella. Both of them not qualifying tonight. Rosella had a rear grid penalty. I don't think I caught up on what happened to Burke tonight, because we had a confirmation on Rosella specifically. But they've both made their way through the field. I've not heard anything about issues for them in terms of the way they've come through the field tonight. So credit to them both, it seems, for making up good positions, plus 14. And in fact, they're the only two drivers who've gone more than plus 10. Your other somewhat decent movement forward. Has been Job Stewart, Marcelo Rivera. As there we go. While I'm talking, Anderson up the inside at 10A, 10B though. Myers will hang on to it, and he will try and force the issue there. Burton couldn't get underneath Scott. He come up towards turn 12, side by side between the two TTR cars. 3 away maybe at turn 1. Here comes Jake Burton.
Yeah, and it's not over yet. And for these guys, for Brady Myers, 3 wide on the run down to turn number 1. They all sort of figure it out, but it's going to be Jake Burton who's your new race leader. They get out of 1. It's now up and over the crest into 2. Now into 3. Myers gets down the inside. Contact with Josh Anderson, and Anderson's up the inside, but Jake Burton says, I'm out of here, boys. You squabble over second place. There's a win on the cards here for me, and Brady Myers manages to hang on to it. The question now becomes, how much time did James Scott eke out of the two of them whilst they were squabbling over it? There's no love lost. We heard there's no team orders for Josh Anderson. He's going to throw it up the inside again. There's contact. Myers had to go aggressive on the strategy. It's sometimes when you're defending for everything that's on the line. For Brady Myers, that hasn't worked. He had to get track position. He had to get to the front. He just had to. There was no other way he was going to win this championship. And unfortunately, it's all come undone.
We'll watch it back here. Happened down at turn 6. And see here, trying to fiercely defend from Anderson through the S's as Burton skipped away. And then, yeah, just a better run for Anderson over the crest of turn 5. Myers will hold the racing line in towards turn 6. And then as they get into the corner, that angle there does just suggest, yeah, contact in and around the right rear corner of the number 22. And that, unfortunately, sends him skidding out to the gravel there. And, well, if you thought his championship battle was looking pretty tough, I do believe it's practically over now. It would Madison Down having completed enough laps to, I believe, be classified, although don't take my word for that, because I know there's a 75% race distance requirement to be classified. I don't know if Madison would also need to come back out and take the checkered flag to be classified, kind of thing there. If a two-step process, as it were, to the classification requirements of the race. And yeah, with James Scott still up towards the front of the field, whilst it's not a win, P3 is certainly still not a bad night for him. That would be enough, or more than enough, because you're now bringing us down in P8. While all that's been happening, I can see Richard Hampstead's got in between James Scott and Brady Myers, so the 28 making up a spot there. That's happened not too long ago, apparently. Might go try and find when that's happened. There's also been an issue down with Robbie Gibbs at 10A, 10B. It looks like the answer might be coming in the opening sector here on this replay.
Yeah, so this is telling a little bit of a story of what's going on with this one. And for Richard Hampstead, gets alongside the 77. And it looked a little bit like Madison Dow just rolled out, just said, yep, just got to keep it clean. Just got to get to the finish line. And, you know, sometimes you got to get aggressive. Sometimes you got to get a few chicken nuggets into the racing helmet from Richard Hampstead. And that looked like a tasty little overtake. I'm sure he enjoyed that one from the onboard side of things. On a night where we sign off and bid farewell to 2023, there was rumours in the background, Dan, that there's going to be some driver shuffles in and around. Only rumours. I got nothing confirmed. I didn't get a lock-in on anything, but there was mutterings. And the rumour mill at the end of a season, it always goes mad. With less than 10 laps on the clock, I think the race is just about to go mad as well.
Well, yeah, we wait to see there. First blood, basically first shot of the end of the race there, as we said. That's how about there from Jordan Ross. That looked a little hairy from that angle versus Rick Kuznetsov's exit off of turn number 7. Hampstead going to have a go at James Scott's position here, and Scott's not refining that one too hard. Decides he's going to concede the spot on this occasion. So 28 will take a podium position away from the sim racing driver. And now, man, it'll be Scott versus Down on the track once again. Greg Goltz there as well, and credit to Ethan that despite having that fuel deficit in the opening stop, has been able to stick with the drivers that he was looking to probably race with as well, given that they started 1, 2, and 3. Now, yeah, pardon me, actually, before I say that like that with confidence, yeah, they were 1, 2, and 3. I could have remembered that. Should have remembered that. Class, yeah, they're now together 4, 5, 6. Not quite the same order they started that race. As just saw their flick up. Josh Anderson is making another run at Jake Burton with 7 to go here on the board. It was just over a 10th on Burton, not just on the last lap, lap 61, but also back on lap 62. Lap 62. There's a comma in there.
Well done, well saved in the end. And for Josh Anderson, he's going to have a stab. And the good news for him as well, Stewart's had a look into it. No further action between himself and Brady Myers. So it will be race it out, boys. Play it out on the track. There will be no time penalties coming either way to solve things at the last. And now it's going to be Madison down all over the rear bumper. Was there a little bit of a nudge at 10B as he starts to try and starts to try and press up? But got by Ethan Greekgold. Greekgold's coming back at these guys as well for somebody who was deep in the pack. 15th at the end of the opening stanza, opening laps of the race. Greekgold to the inside. A dive bomb, a send from outer space. And I tell you what, give that man the reins of a spaceship because he just wrestled that bad boy and parked it on the moon.
That was a very nice commitment there from Greekgold. He was thinking about it. He was deep on the brakes in a 10A as well, but couldn't get a move on there. And it just says, look, I'm at your rear bumper. I'm going up the inside and down once again, not looking to be overly aggressive with protecting his position. Can afford to slip back to P6 and will be happy to do so as a result. Half a second, meanwhile, in it for our race lead. They're coming up to 6 laps remaining. Pardon me, it'll be 5 laps remaining at the end of this one here. And there you go, just moving across the track a bit from the left to the right and a little bit. It almost looked like towards the left again for Jake Burton, but decides, no, I'll take the racing line down towards 10A, 10B as I normally would. And probably for the best there, given you don't want to make yourself vulnerable through the corners any more than he might be as the slipstream helps Anderson down that back straightaway. And there you go, gap down to 0.4 of a second across the line as that there has been an exchange of position between Kuznetsov and Jordan Ross, and Job Stewart trying to fend off Blake Warboys, I do believe. It looks to be the case, and looks like he has just done so and opened up the door to Wayne Burke there in the 89.
Yeah, the Dr. Epoxy entry. And Burke will get that job done. So from the rear of the field all the way to 15th spot. Blake Warboys back to 16th. Could it be 17th? Because Adam Briggs thought that there might have been a whiff of a gap there at turn 1. And the gap closed very, very quickly. Brenton Hobson's in behind these guys as well, so he's still drifting. This might just be enough for Brenton Hobson. And for a night where he doesn't want to have to come through the qualifying series again, that's what it's about. It's about locking yourself back in for another season of Top Flight V8 Supercar racing. And he might have done enough. It's not been easy. He said in his chat pre-race, I don't get enough time. I really don't get enough time, because when you're a content creator, when you're making content, your practice is live on stream. We don't do that. I like to practice with the eyes off of me. Well, he doesn't get enough time to put that the eyes onto his practice runs. Doesn't get enough time behind the seat. It's very, very difficult. Relies on his teammates around him to give him the intel, to give him the data, to say, I'm off here, I'm off a little bit in turn 11, I'm off a little bit in 1, 2, 3. This is where I've got to make the adjustments. And that's so critical for these teams working together, Dan.
Yeah, it absolutely is. At a level like this, unless you've got the ability to put in those hours yourself, you need people who can help you out to be able to perform. And the fact of the matter is that, this field is such a competitive field that, you can't afford to be a 1/10 of a second off. That's going to cost you at least 2 to 3 positions, if not more, depending on how everyone's going in qualifying and the like. So, you cannot afford to be off your game. You have to be able to deliver basically your best every single time you come into the race server. And that's what will show us who are the best drivers here. Is having a look once again. This gap was closer at the end of the lap, but it looks like maybe Burton's got something through the opening couple of seconds. He opens the margin up and is safe from an attack from Anderson down the back straightaway. We're going to have 3 laps to go here at the line, Scott. Going to watch, I think, the lap time between these two once again here at the end of lap 65 and just see how it swings between these two. But if anything like lap 64 is to go by, there's basically nothing in it. And 300s, not a lot in it.
And something else, Dan, was watching, was enjoying some of the NASCAR Contender Series that's going on, the Xfinity cars overseas at the moment, to attempt to qualify to the Coca-Cola NASCAR Pro Series for next year. Those guys put in about 10 hours worth of practice a race. Well, James Scott had caught up with him and sort of asked him a little bit about that. He said 100 to 150 laps is what he's sort of putting in. Set up, once they get there, there's not really much tweaks. It's driving things a little bit different here, trying to find little bits and pieces. Could I use a little bit of a track a little bit differently? And something else I touched on earlier in the broadcast as well, different approach to real world. You can't get 10 hours worth of real world practice in. You're just never getting that. Tyres will never do it. The engine, you're going to have to replace an engine if you're doing that sort of amount of practice. You know, it's something that's only possible in sim racing, but if you want to be at the peak of your game, that's the requirement that you have to put in. That's the requirement to get better, to consistently improve. You're chasing hundredths of a second. Sometimes it's thousands. And for right now, for James Scott, he's chasing a bit more than that. He's chasing it all the way down the inside of Richard Hampstead, and he's back on the podium. It's been a long time since lap 1, but James Scott has made his way back to the bottom step of the podium. Is Josh Anderson, Jake Burton still in contention, and this is how it was done.
Yeah, has been patient most of this race, and well, apart from lap 1 where the fireworks went off here at the front of the field. There you go, slipstream. I think Hampstead too. That looked like a bit of a rollout over the crest as well for the 28 machine. So maybe just making sure his fuel numbers are okay, but also not needing to race too hard. It's all said and done. And yep, Scott able to slide up the inside and take that podium, the final podium step away, as you point out. Now, I want to watch this gap here through turns 6 and 7. It's that 0.3 of a second, but on the past couple of laps, I've seen that get out as high as half a second between Burton and Josh Anderson. Because if you can keep it around 0.3, maybe there's a chance down into 10A, 10B, 0.4 of a second. If Anderson wants this, I think this would be awfully close here as they're coming up towards 1 lap to go when we get to the end of this one here. You can see now Burton trying to break the toe. He'll lead Anderson to the right, to the left, and back to the right once more. But it looks like here that was just enough of a margin to be able to protect the spot. Anderson a tiny bit of a roll, it seems, as well, to settle the car into 10A, 10B. Greg Galt's eyeing off Hampstead in that second pack for P4. Can't quite get it done. He's going to try and cross over, though, for 11 and 12, as the white flag will be shown to these two here at the front of the field. And it's on for P4 here, side by side through turn 12.
And for the night, we're the Fishy family, we're the Sim Racing family. Farewell to friend. It's now going to be farewell to the season. It's 3-1 to turn 1. Andrew Gilliam's not been in contention for much of the night. Green Gold's going to come out the other side. Down sneaks his way through. He's back to 5th. Hampstead's there, now in 6th. And now from Andrew Gilliam, the last lap of the championship. 2023, 10 races, has been all up and down all season long. It's been the highs, it's been the lows as they make their way up, down through the roller coaster of the first sector. Off of turn 5, they bounce over. A little bit of a bouncy season for a few drivers. Some of them bounce back, others didn't like the ride over the curbs at turn 5. But for Jake Burton, it's one more time for this season. The run off of turn 7, there is less than 4 kilometres, there's less than 2 kilometres. He's running out of time if you're Josh Anderson to get this move done. He's too far back. There might have been a fuel bill that needed to be paid from Josh Anderson, but on the night where we crown our 2023 champion, Jake Burton leads us to 10A. He leads us through 10B. He's going to lead us up and over the crest at the bridge for the final time. The run through 11, the run through 12. Jake Burton wins the final race of the 2023 season from Road Atlanta. Josh Anderson home in 2nd. It's going to be James Scott who looks to come home in 3rd and does so. But where? Who finishes in behind? Greg Gold gets the job done on Madison down. Just Brady Myers gets back to 6th place. Hampstead and Gilliam continue to kick off as that lap finish. Rudd's going to get home in 8th. And boy, when you thought the season was over, these boys said, no, there's still one more lap. There's still 4 kilometres left. And they made every single K, every single mile, every single inch count across that final stanza of 2023.
And indeed, it didn't end there because there's been some drama down at the back chicane, which looks like it involved Thomas Freeman and Kurt Stenberg primarily. They will finally see the flag as once you get a replay here. Again, another 3 wide attempt at turn 1. This time, Hampstead, as he turns in there, trying to get into the corner on the outside, is now on the outside, pinches Gilliam a tiny bit, who's leaving space for Greg Gold. It gets the 201 tripped up. Somehow, no one goes around fully in all of this, because there you go. Left rear in the grass momentarily for Hampstead. It allowed Madison down up into 5th place there, and then it was up to him to try and mount an attack on him. This is what it looked like for Madison down. So he thought about it for a second. He backed out. Gilliam said, nah, I'm going for it, boys. And then just there, the tiniest bit of contact gets his car loose. But yeah, no one ending up going around, able to keep that battle going to the end of the lap. is, again, one of the things you do like to see.
He was aware. He was absolutely aware, Madison Down, that this is going to kick off. I've just got to sit here. I've just got to watch. I've just got to... I'm champion-elect. There's no reason for me to get involved in this one. Jake Burton runs out of fuel on the run back to pit lane. He wins tonight from Josh Anderson, from James Scott, and 68 laps around Road Atlanta. Was it enough to say goodbye? Was it enough to say farewell to 2023 and all that's gone on? We'll get a chat to your championship winner. We'll get a chat to P2 in the championship as well, because James Scott's going to finish in P3, all things considered. But for Madison Down, you can see what it means to him. That is the celebration. That is what it means to win the Logitech G Pro Invitational for 2023. That, ladies and gentlemen, is your champion.
And indeed, being one of the drivers at the top of the supercar game on iRacing for quite some time now, and puts another feather in his cap with this year's championship. And it'll be good to hear from him once he's finished putting down the fireworks and the rubber on the road here.
Yeah, well, those tyres, there's no racing after this. Don't need them anymore.
And funnily enough, the virtual ones, we don't set limits too often, so yeah, we can have at them there. As just at the end of the race, we've had word come through that there was an incident on lap 16 involving Kurt Stenberg and Robbie Gibbs, and it'd be a 10-second penalty, or 15-second penalty, sorry, to Stenberg for that one there, which happened off screen and must have been what tripped up Tom Freeman, which we did catch at the end of that one there.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let us know what your highlight of the season was, because there was quite a few moments up and down. Luke Rosella winning at Sandown when he had to charge through late, got caught on the right side of a late safety car, pitted at the right time, got fresh rubber on, still had a lot to do in front of him. That was a moment of the season that certainly kicked things off. Was it potentially the fireworks that got underway when we set sail at Detroit Belle Isle? Because that was a night to forget. The good thing it was sim racing, good thing it wasn't real world racing, because there would have been some crews hard at work overnight trying to repair some cars at the tail end of that one. Was it the Red Bull Ring? Was it from any of the rounds this season? Or for some of these drivers that are up and down the field, what does it look like for 2024? Remember, there's that qualifying series. 20 drivers from the main game will qualify to maintain their position for 2024. 20 will have to qualify in. It all gets underway in January. And for 20 lucky drivers, they'll get to take on the back 20 to compete their way in for season 2024. And the qualifying series, obviously Australian tracks for pre-qualifying. But for me, Magny-Cours, Hockenheim and Fuji, that is going to light it up. We return here to Road Atlanta for race 1 of the qualifying season, Dan. And I love watching racing at Fuji. And for me, I think the qualifying series next year from Fuji, that is going to be a race to watch.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. It's going to be great. I think Fuji being, the big will be a big drafting opportunity. In saying that, 3 of the 4 tracks will have strong drafting opportunity. Though with Road Atlanta maybe tonight a good clue as to what you might expect to see in the qualifying series race, with the way that the packs will mostly stick together, and it'll be really down to who can make the big moves. But also the track position will be key. I think Magny-Cours might serve as the one that's the outlier there. Not as much slipstream. There is obviously the run up to, I believe it's the Adelaide hairpin. Forgive me if I've got the name of the corner wrong, but ultra sharp corner there. But yeah, then the full series calendar, and with Sebring to get the series underway in March, of course. And yeah, that extended 12-round season, a track to be announced at some point later next year as well, and the extension of the endurance season, if you will, to 3 races with Interlagos to kick things off instead of Sandown.
I'm looking forward to that, and what the actual format for that enduro race at Interlagos actually look like. Interlagos tends to be one of my favorite tracks. There's another guy, series admin with for a while. And same thing, Interlagos tends to be right up there in terms of things. Looking after tyres in a V8 supercar for an extended race there is not going to be easy in terms of things. But tonight, I think that was cracking. The drivers that made the most places up the drop of the checkered flag, Wayne Burke from 30th on the grid, all the way to 15th. Rosella from 32nd in the end only got back to 18th. Only got plus 14 to finish things off. But we might start from the top end of our race podium here this evening. It's going to be Jake Burton who wins the final race of the season. And Jake, I tell you what, your TTR boys, he's had it all locked up there, that draft train at the top end of town. It looks like you got a little bit smarter in terms of your fuel dump. You took a little bit more fuel at that first stop. It means you had less to add at that second margin and less to do to bring it home.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think it was mostly the fuel saving in the race. If I had more than the others, it wasn't by a huge amount. Yeah, just huge fuel saving in the first couple stints and drove really hard to get in the toe of Ando in that final stint. And yeah, just capitalised when those two were battling and managed to hold Ando off. It was actually pretty tight because I'd fueled to sort of be behind them until the last couple laps, but obviously you get 7 laps in clear air and have to push hard. I actually had to save a bit, so it was probably lucky in the end, but I'm just stoked to win the race, but also for Mads to win the championship as well. It's awesome.
Mate, talk to us a little bit about the team and the chatter within the group there, because obviously we could see it. Brady, you knew it as well, and you guys would have been talking about it. We talked about it pre-show as well. Brady had to throw something. He had to throw something at the wall tonight and make it stick, but he's still a teammate at the end of the day. You still got to look after him a little bit, but you can't fuel save that much in front of you. You've eventually got to throw the pass, and you had to get aggressive.
Yeah, that's it. I sort of waited for Ando to have a go, and then the sort of path cleared for me. I was pretty stoked with that move I made to go 3 wide down the inside there. That was one of the coolest moves I've ever made, so that was awesome. But yeah, you know, obviously if that race doesn't show it, there's not really typically any team orders here, especially when it doesn't matter for the championship or anything like that. No games, just race as hard as you can. Sort of 10 laps to go, we all said to each other, all right, all 3 of us want to win this race. Who's it going to be? And yeah, I was lucky to come off with it tonight, but it was a hard race, that was for sure.
The other side of that argument, though, you obviously mentioned there's no team games there, but it's also friends at the end of the day. You know, you can go out there and you can say, we've left it all on track, and even if it come off second best, you can pick your buddy up, you can go pat on the back of the shoulder, man, we both threw everything that we had, we've got a little bit of leeway to make mistakes, and just race each other hard. What's that like within the group at TTR?
Oh, well, you know, we're all friends, but at the end of the day, we're all very competitive too. And, you know, if you can't be proud of your teammate beating you on one day or losing a race, you probably shouldn't be friends at the end of the day. We've learned that with teammates in the past. So I've been in that position myself, getting salty at teammates and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, you go out there and race and try to win. And, you know, some days Brady wins, sometimes Josh wins, sometimes Mats wins. But luckily we got it done today.
In terms of things, that is a big statement at the end of 2023. What does that mean to you heading into 2024?
Well, the start of my season looked quite strong. I had a really rough round at Belle Isle, and then the couple of Enduros, I wasn't sort of up in the top 5 with the championship contenders. I think there was no question this year we probably had the pace to be up there and fighting for it, just didn't roll our way. So yeah, really awesome momentum going into next year. It's nice to have so many TTR cars up the front as well, and as we all sort of expected, this round was mega clean, awesome racing, huge contrast to what we saw last round. So yeah, really stoked to have had such a nice night. It gives you a nice taste going into the off season that you can sort of finish the season off solid.
Mate, congratulations. Your opportunity, floor is all yours. Thank the sponsors that make it possible for you and the boys.
Yeah, of course. So huge thanks to everyone at TTR, all the boys and girls there. This was a huge year for us, obviously, to win the championship, but also have so many cars consistently in the top 5. Huge effort from everyone. My first year back with the team, and to be honest, I didn't put a huge amount of effort in. A lot of the heavy lifting was done by the likes of the Mads and the Bradys and the Andos and the Richards and etc. So yeah, huge thanks to the guys for all their work this year. The setup has been awesome. Just about every week we've rolled out, so that was no exception tonight. And obviously huge thanks to our partners as well at Virtual Racing School, long time sponsor of mine now. So hugely thankful to be partnered with such an impressive organisation that's still continuing to grow, along with CardFX as well. Huge thanks to them. And yeah, bring on the next year. Thanks so much for your broadcast, guys.
Mate, congratulations on the race win here tonight. I'm sure we'll see you back again next season, ready and raring to go, and who knows? Maybe it goes just that few steps better next season.
Sure will. Thanks, guys.
Dan Yeaman, I believe you got Josh Anderson standing by from P2 there tonight.
Indeed, I will. Josh, not quite, unfortunately, the top step of the podium here tonight at the end of it all, but certainly well within a shot all night long. How did that feel from behind the driver's seat?
Yeah, it's funny. Some days you're happy with 5th or 6th, and other days you're pretty upset with 2nd. And today's one of those days, to be honest, and I know it's just on me. In that middle stint, I did my strategy to try to come out with more than a 2-second gap to the guys behind. And I almost did, and I just didn't drive well enough on cold tyres, and then stay within 2 seconds for the toe. And yeah, I kind of just didn't do a good enough job, really. And then I haven't won one of these races before, so I really, really wanted to win, and that definitely felt like I missed an open goal, to be honest. So it is what it is, but I'll learn from it and I'll press on to the next year.
Well, it's good to hear, I guess, in the sense that you're looking forward to next year. In that sense, I mean, you're looking for one of these wins still. I guess, how much does that stoke the fire for you then? In that case, in that you want to try and hunt one down, and you were this close at the very end tonight. And I mean, tracking Madison in P2 in the opening set, and as you said, leading in that middle phase before coming to the earlier pit stops as well.
Yeah, racing's funny. Like, the harder you try doesn't often result in the output doesn't often meet the input. So you just got to drive, and the way the race falls, if you go and do 30 hours of practice, you won't be any better, at least for me. So I just, if I have fun, then I drive well, and if I'm enjoying my sim racing, then I normally go all right. So just one of those things that the way the race fell tonight didn't quite fall my way, and that's a few mistakes on my part, really. So I've got to try and iron them out of my game, and that's a challenge about it. That's what we love about racing and trying to get better, and so I've just got to try and do that, really. Just try and learn, and you learn something from every race, and I definitely learned a lot tonight. So it was. I still really I love racing, so it was awesome fun to race. And congrats to Jake on the win. He drove better than I did, and in that last 10 laps with managing the fuel saver, I was clean. He didn't put a foot wrong, and he totally deserved the win. So but it was mega fun. So just hopefully we see more of that next year.
I mean, one last thing on the race, and I guess also the fact that, for most of the race, it looked like you guys collectively, as part of with Trans-Tasman, you guys looked like someone had control over the race, whether it was Madison, whether it was yourself, whether it was Jake, and Brady's gambit with the undercut on fuel tonight. Obviously, as a part of a team, you're sort of roughly working together. How much are you sort of trying to keep in the bag for yourself personally, if you're willing to give a bit of an insight, sort of, given that you're all racing to try and get the personal result here with the race at the very least tonight?
Oh, mate, I bloody wanted to win. I wouldn't say I was telling fibs to my teammates about how much fuel I had and stuff, but I was thinking about it because, you really, so I wouldn't say team would have really come into it. Like, obviously we race hard and we're all teammates and we want to see, for example, Madison win the championship. And that was fantastic that he got that done. But we race hard, we all want to win, we're all competitive. So I don't think we really, other than knowing kind of what fuel we were all going to take, so we are sort of all together on track, which obviously, because the way the car is, you go a bit faster in the toe. But we all wanted to win. So I think there wasn't really any team orders at all, to be honest.
Indeed,
I've
heard that one before with you guys at TTR, and it certainly looked the part and delivered in a positive way from our perspective, watching the race at the
100%.
as well.
We're all racers. We don't, none of us are getting paid. We're not really. We do this to have fun, and you get the thrill from having a damn good race. So we're all really competitive, and that's what we do it for. But I love it. It's great fun.
Indeed. Well, look forward to hopefully seeing more of that good stuff come next year, as you've hinted at already. And to let you go tonight, Josh, who's you like to thank for your P2 result here to cap the season off?
Yeah, Jake pretty much summed it up with our sponsors. Obviously, VRS supported us for a long time, and we use it every day, which is mega for us. But I want to thank Mads. He's been a bit of a mentor for me for a long time, and to see him win the championship's pretty awesome. So I think he was massively deserving of winning the championship this year. The best and cleanest driver all year. So I think I'm really happy to see him win the championship. So props to him.
Well, thank you very much there. Josh Anderson, P2, here tonight for the final race of the season. And Scott, I'll hand back to you for our next interview. Now, I don't know if you're going to go with James Scott or Madison down. You tell me where you're going with this one.
All right, James Scott, it's an honour to have you back here and on the podium again for the final round, mate. You threw everything you had here tonight. You were the only driver to really fill that tank up at that first stop. You had to throw something. There was 5 cars ahead of you, all working together. You had to throw something at them. And for me, I think you did. You threw it at them. You said, "Hey boys, you've got to chase me. You've got to try and do something different."
Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much what I thought. But I don't know. It was a bit of a freaking wobbler tonight. I pretty much went in with no practice, or pretty limited, so probably got what I deserved, to be honest. Lack of pace, really, so sums up. Yeah, my night, so I know, can't complain too much, I guess, with a P3.
Mate, in terms of things, it's been an up and down season. We've said it all season long, just about. If you're leading the championship, luck doesn't come your way. Were you hoping for a little bit of that sometimes? It's been a curse. It's been debated back and forth in the commentary box, man. Was there any hopes there tonight?
I don't know. It was, I had it, yeah, wasn't even really thinking about it coming into this, really. 60 points or whatever it was is a bit too far away, so yeah, I'd given up after last week, to be honest, so last round, sorry. So yeah, no, wasn't thinking about that at all.
In terms of things, obviously that's quite, it's difficult to take. Win at Bathurst, the Enduro season went quite well. What's the adjustment? What's the response next year in terms of what do you change? Was it quite a lot to do at the last race? Is it altering the strategies and altering things? Was there any moment that you sort of went, that's where it turned?
No, it's got to be faster, really. If you're fast enough, the results sort of take care of themselves. Obviously, there was a couple of strategy calls over the year that could have gone either way, but didn't go our way, which is just racing. But yeah, at the end of the day, I just need to find a couple of tenths. So yeah.
And finally, mate, before we let you go here tonight, P3 here tonight, P2 on the championship. The floor is all yours to thank the sponsors that make it possible for you and Synergy Sim Racing.
Yep, shout out to Watercraft Performance Centre, Too Easy Finance, Dr. Epoxy, Works Racing Components, shout out to all the guys at SSR, and obviously shout out to Brody and Shane, who helped out throughout the year, and obviously Shane stepping in for the Enduros as well, did a mega job. Congrats to Madison on the win. I'll have to try and see what we can do a bit better next year to catch you, but yeah, well done, mate. And yeah. And I think it was Brady and Peter as well, so well done.
Congratulations, James. Pleasure. Thank you very much for jumping in here tonight and having a few words with us. So appreciate it, mate. We'll see you back again next year.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, that now gives me the pleasure to announce our 2023 Logitech G Pro Invitational Champion. It is the driver of the number 77 for Trans-Tasman Racing, Madison Down. Madison, congratulations. It's been a long season. Was there a little bit of nerves knowing that we've had that curse over the championship leader all season long?
Oh, 100%. Coming into this final round, we knew it was obviously going to be hard fought. And yeah, there's been a lot of rivalry this season and a lot of competition in this series, which is great to see. Yeah, for me, obviously the pressure was all on myself with that points gap that we had. It was pretty much just make sure that we could do what we've done all year and just have a strong, solid result. And thankfully, we were able to do it. So massive sigh of relief for myself. And yeah, it has a nice ring to it to get this championship under the belt as well.
Mate, in terms of things, it all kicked off on lap number 1. But we talked to you pre-race. You said, look, there's no risky gambles tonight. We're not going to do all that much. And then the racing kicked off, and then we sort of went, it's gone into a bit of a stalemate here. And we thought maybe you're probably in the wrong place in that first stanza, leading the pack of cars behind you. That just gave so much opportunity for the fuel saving. What's going through your head? Let's say lap 15, lap 20, and you see James Scott pit behind you.
Oh yeah, 100%. As I said, we knew where we needed to finish and what the whole scenario was. So in the end, for me, I just had to kind of park the ego a little bit and accept that the race win may not be on the cards, and that's fine. We just need to get that consistent result, and so that's what we did. We ran a really strong first stint. Obviously, gave up a lot of time in strategy there, but yeah, came out down the order and probably didn't have enough to fight with. I knew obviously James was going to make it difficult, and he's allowed to. So. He sure didn't want me to pass, so I basically just kind of conceded defeat there and took the points, which, yeah, just had to take the low-risk strategy there in the end. So Mega happy to see though that we managed to still get the race win as a team. So massive shout out to Jake Burton to get the win tonight. That was mega. And he actually, we so often talk about no team orders in TTR, and at Road America he did fan the throttle on the last lap to give me that extra position. So which essentially took the win away from him last round. So really happy for Jake to get the win tonight as well.
The team culture there's a lot of discussion about it. Look, we're going for broke. We're still on for this race. We're still on for everything that's going possible. Is that so important to you? Would it take something away? You know, what's the mindset around there? When you're structuring a team, when you're structuring a challenge at a championship, you've got to have one team, one mind, one focus. There's a lot of teams out there that can sit down and say, hey, yeah, look, we think fighting each other as a team isn't the way forward. That's what happens in Formula One. That's how that works. Do you think that worked for you this season? You think it's worked against you? What's your thoughts on the culture there?
Oh, there's for and against, but in the end, as the other two guys here said, we're all mates. We've all got massive egos. We all think we're the best driver in the team, and we all are keen to prove it. And every time we hit the track, we all want to win. We all want to be winning the races. We all want to be winning the championship. That can't happen clearly, so we need to make sure we work together week in, week out, and we do. Mostly, there's run-ins. Unfortunately, you know, there's contact between cars occasionally. It happens, but I think this year it's probably one of the best teams I've seen in sim racing, and that's a big call. It's been nearly 15 years for me doing this, and to see that teamwork and cohesion every single week to, you know, make a fast race car and then put the strategy together on the night and all work together in the races to ensure a team result. It's a really good culture to be in.
Mate, and then final question I've got for you. What's the celebration? Is it pump of the fist? Is there a shoey? Is there, you know, a beer or two with mates this weekend, a quiet one around the fire? You know, what's the celebration look like?
I think the celebration as I crossed the line was a massive sigh of relief, probably more than anything. You know, obviously we've been in a good position the last 2 rounds, and a lot of work goes into this year and this championship. So to get it done is always relieving. I mean, obviously the pressure of having that lead, like I mentioned, is there. In terms of celebration, I'll probably go and get a few drinks out of the fridge tonight and have a couple to celebrate. It is a school night though, so I do have work tomorrow, so can't go too hard. We'll save more celebration for the coming weeks. I think we're going to have a little bit of a TTR Christmas party and maybe play a few arcade racing games with some drinks and have a bit of a laugh. So that'll be coming up in a few weeks' time, and we'll enjoy the success of the team all together and have a fun night on the sim.
All right, well, only reminder for you, just remember when you're playing Mario Party, that red shell is the thing, mate, so just keep an eye out for that one in the rearview mirror. Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen, your 2023 Series champion. It is Madison Down. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap us up here from the Logitech G Pro Invitational. As a reminder, that's not all we've got in store for you for, well, it is for 2023, but for 2024, all of your qualifying action begins from January 14th. Winton Motor Raceway and Phillip Island are your 2 circuits where everything will kick off in terms of qualifying. Get your times in nice and early. After that, it's on to the 4-round qualifying series. From myself, from the entire Logitech Pro Invitational team, from Sandmed, from Lockie Mansell, from everyone that's been a part of this series, for everyone that's been involved right all the way through the year, we thank you for tuning in. We thank you for being a part of this, and we'll see you in 2024, because next year there's going to be a new Logitech G Pro Invitational champion. Could it be you?